That way, the the attorney who is doing the cross, or I'm sorry, the attorney who's doing the direct merely has to call that witness to the stand, and we begin immediately. Normally, I would swear each witness individually, but it does save some time, and I found that's helpful. Looks like we have all of our parents, coaches, friends have joined us by live stream. I didn't realize that live stream was 30-second delay. I'm not sure the reason for that, but I don't plan on any profanities that will have to be censored, but in any event, they should all be with us now. And Amber, as soon as you give us the go-ahead as far as other conflicts, we'll begin.
Well, I just want to let you know that I will have my video off, but I will be monitoring the chat, and you guys have my cell phone number. I left it in the chat as well. So if you have anything, if you need anything, I will be available.
Thank you. Let's see, Amber, I've got your cell phone here with an asterisk for a number.
It's underneath it. Forgive me, I don't have my 10 key on my laptop.
I see.
So I was a little dysfunctional. So it's 8621661.
I see it. I didn't look underneath there, sorry.
Amber, I'm not sure how I get to the scoring sheet, please.
I did send Amy a message. I have not heard back from her yet. So I will, let me give her a call.
I know that it's on the main, you'd have to open up screens twice. You'd have to open up a screen, you get the main screen and it says scoring sheet. And but you'd have to open up a separate screen to get this back. I know that's one way to do it. I think, there we go. That's a much easier way, of course, where it is now in the chat.
I was able to pull up and print out the team rosters, but it doesn't tell me what the team code is. I'm having trouble finding it. Oh, wait a minute. One says Phyllis. Phyllis?
Yeah, they're, instead of A and B, they're Phyllis and Kelly.
Okay, whatever you like. Which one is which, please?
Phyllis is the plaintiff.
Phyllis is a prosecution plaintiff. Okay, thank you. Phyllis.
Or in this case, the plaintiff as opposed to the prosecution, but that's just
right.
Semantic.
Yeah, I got it. Phyllis. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I have nothing else, Judge. If you're ready to go, we are ready to proceed.
Great. If we could have all of our, this is Judge Wheeler, if we could have all of our participants on video for the moment, and you can hold your audio for just a minute. Great. And what I will need, though, is I need on audio as well as video our team captains for Team Phyllis. Is it Phyllis by any chance? Or is that just a random name that's been assigned to the plaintiff? Here we have everybody coming on. And who is the team captain for the plaintiff, for Phyllis? Do we have a team captain for the defendant, for the Kelly team?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Ms. Is it pronounced Abraha?
Yes.
Thank you. I hate mispronouncing names, so if I have any question for any of you, I'll ask. And let me find you here, ma'am. Oh, for the defense, that's right. I was looking at the wrong one. Here we go. Here we are. And do we have a team captain for the plaintiff, the Phyllis team?
Yes, Your Honor.
And that's Ms. Liebman, correct? And you can leave your team captains, you can leave your microphones on for the moment, just so that we can chat for a minute. Or that's a kind of a term of art on virtual, so that we can talk for a minute. So Ms. Liebman and Ms. Abraha, you already have yours on. Ms. Liebman, if you could turn yours on.
Yeah.
There we go. And for the plaintiff, Ms. Liebman, do you have a full team here? 3 attorneys, 3 witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
All right, we've got some folks in the room who must have their microphones on or something. We're getting some bad feedback there. So Ms. Liebman, turn your microphone on. Let's see if we can fix this.
Right, it was the lady who was just speaking. If you have 2 devices that are being used, both for audio and video, you'll need to make sure that one of those are muted.
She's working on it. Good. Okay. I'll ask Ms. Abraha, do you have a full team here, 3 attorneys and 3 witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor.
And are your, let's see, I noticed, here we go. We have plaintiffs, witnesses all in one room. Ms. Liebman, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what about attorneys? Are you, it looks as though you each have separate cameras.
Yes, attorneys are in the same room with separate cameras.
Okay. And the witnesses are in the same room with just one camera, but there'll only be one on at a time. That's good. And we also have our timekeepers, I see, for both the plaintiff and, let's see, Alex Holland for the plaintiff and Kyle Branson for the Kelly team. And if I could have the timekeepers on for just a moment, please, on video. Great. And for the plaintiff, Ms. Holland, how are you planning on notifying us of your time? Are you going to be doing it visually with cards, or are you going to be putting it on the chat?
I'm going to be typing it in the chat.
Great. And Mr. Branson, how about you?
Your Honor, I was planning on using cards, if that's all right.
Cards, that means you'll need to mute your audio and leave your video on.
If it's all right with you, I was just going to turn the video on when I was holding up a card, but if you'd like me to leave it on the entire time.
That's fine. In fact, it's probably better because we'll notice it. We'll notice something coming on the screen. Good way to do it. Yeah, both good ways. We all have team rosters. Now, again, for our team captains, Ms. Liebman, how are you going to screen share your exhibits or do it some other way?
Yes, I will be screen sharing the exhibits.
And who will be doing it? Will you be doing it for your will each of the attorneys be doing it for their own exhibits, or are you going to have a third party doing it?
I will be doing it for every attorney's exhibits.
You'll be in charge of that for all attorneys then. Great. And Ms. Abraha, what about you?
We will have our co-counsel share the exhibit.
Co-counsel will, so a third party, not you, not the person on the screen, will be doing it for everybody? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, before we get started, I wanted to have our scoring panelists introduce themselves briefly so that you know who you're dealing with here. And I'd ask Mr. Prey if you'd go first.
All right. I'm a retired professional civil engineer and retired land surveyor. My wife is a coach in the system. I won't say where. And our daughter coaches as well. I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years, I think. So, I'm ready to go.
Thank you. And Ms. Morris.
I am a criminal defense attorney. I practice in the Fort Collins area. I've been with the Public Defender's Office in Fort Collins for the past 12 years.
Thank you. I'm sure you're following our Supreme Court nominee right now. All the flack she's getting for being a public defender. It's just incomprehensible to me, but that's the way it goes, I guess. And Ms. Tui.
I'm Sarah Toohey. I'm a retired workers' compensation trial lawyer, and I've done the mock trial for several years.
And Mr. Ingram.
Yes, I competed as a competitor in high school mock trial for several years for Palmer High School here in Colorado. And then for the last several years, I've captained Colorado College's mock trial team as we've gone to the national championship and stuff like that.
Thank you. As you can see, my name's John Wheeler. I'm a retired district court judge. I sat in the 18th district in Arapahoe County for a little over 14 years. Before that, I was a civil trial lawyer for 26 years and tried many, many cases just like this. Same issues, same kind of deal. So I'm very familiar with it. We'll get going now. I'm going to ask, let's see here. Oh, there we go. Ms. Liebman is the plaintiff ready for trial.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Ms. Abraha is the defendant ready for trial.
Your Honor, the defense has a preliminary matter.
Yes, we'll get to those in just a moment, but otherwise you're all set to go?
Yes, Your Honor.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go through all these preliminaries here since this is the first trial in the state championship round. Everybody has heard all of these rules before, once or twice for sure. And but on the first trial, I want to do the same, is just make sure that everybody is straight on all of these rules. This is being live streamed to the public, but I want to caution all those people who are listening to this on live stream and our participants, if it should apply, that please don't record this. Please don't take screenshots from it. The Colorado Bar Association has the sole right to do either of those if they wish, but we ask that no one else do it. It was much easier live in the courtroom to enforce this, because if the judge ever saw somebody holding up a cell phone recording, we could take action, but everyone's on their honor not to do that, please. If any of you are connected in the on the live screen, if any of you are connected with a different team, please be sure that you disconnect now. You are not permitted to view a competitor, a competing team, if you are a coach or a participant in another team. So please remember that you're not allowed, unless you are directly connected with either the Phyllis or the Kelly teams, you're not allowed to view this particular trial. As the participants know, there'll be no recesses during this approximate 3-hour trial we're going to have. So be sure you're ready to go, have something to drink, that you don't need a break. If you have a medical emergency, let me know immediately. Or if one of your co-counsel, another witness or something has a problem, let me know. And we will take a break and I'll deal with that issue if it comes up. If there is a technical problem, we'll let you know. If your screen is dragging, if we get an echo, we'll deal with that immediately. And time will stop if there is a technical problem. And if I don't say time stops, the timekeepers need to know that so that you can stop time, coordinate between yourselves if you need to, so that we get the proper time going forward. We have cleared all of the conflicts already. If disputes arise in the competition, and it's very rare, as you probably have experienced, that such a conflict might exist, but there may be one. Some of those conflicts I will resolve. Some of them will be resolved by the monitor. Some of them will be resolved after the trial, and your coaches and you probably are aware of which is which. If it is one I will deal with, then I will deal with it. Time requirements will be enforced. Periodically, I'll check to see that the timekeepers are on board or are within a few seconds of each other. If either timekeeper feels that you've got a problem, that the other timekeeper's time, say something. We will stop. We'll get that resolved and move forward. It usually happens at the end of the trial or the end of either the plaintiff's presentation or the defense presentation, when you start running out of time. And if there is a problem, if there's a discrepancy, we'll stop everything, get that resolved, and then move forward. If I feel because of technical problems, if we have some technical problems, whether it's in posting exhibits or anything else, I will, before we get too close to the end, I will just myself indicate we're going to add 30 seconds or a minute or something like that to everybody's time because we've had these technical problems. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Let's see here. I'm going to ask first on the for Team Phyllis, Ms. Liebman, if you can introduce yourself and then ask each of your attorneys and then witnesses to introduce themselves, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Sophie Liebman, and I will be performing the direct examination of Dr. Casey Rogers and the cross-examination of Blake Doncourt.
And next.
Sorry. Good evening, Your Honor, or good morning, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury and opposing counsel. My name is Kyan Carney, and I will be performing the direct of Dakota Weirs, the cross of Skylar Weirs, and the, and the closing argument.
Thank you. And our final attorney on the plaintiff.
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the jury, opposing counsel. My name is Hannah Moskowitz, and this morning I will be doing the opening statement, providing the direct examination of Carson Durst, and providing the cross-examination of Dr. Devin Williams. At this time, may our witnesses please introduce themselves?
Yes, they may.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel and members of the jury. My name is Maggie Holland, and today I am Carson Durst.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Matthias Stauer, and today I am Dakota Weirs.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. My name is Tony Adams, and today I am Dr. Casey Rogers.
And for the, thank you. And for the plaintiff's witnesses, I would ask, of course, only one of you will be on the screen during your testimony. And this probably goes without saying, but when you do testify, please move closer to the camera. Great. That way you're your audio will be much better. But when we view you all three at once here, that's the appropriate way for this introduction. So thank you very much.
Yes.
Ms. Abraha, if you could introduce yourself, ask your fellow attorneys to do the same and your witnesses.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Christina Abraha, and I will be conducting the direct examination of Dr. Devin Williams and the cross-examination of Dr. Casey Rogers.
And Ms. Abraha, do you have the ability to move a little closer?
Yes.
Let's give that a try. I think it will improve your audio a little bit. Let's try that again. Just say your name. I think that'll work. We've got a little delay there, but it's not too bad. Thank you. And your next attorney?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Zach Hines. I will be conducting the direct examination of Skylar Weirs and the cross-examination of Carson Durst, and I will also be giving the closing statement today for the defense.
And for you, if you'd move just a little bit closer, if you could, if that's possible, that's perfect. Thank you. And finally, for the defendant.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Jessie Coster on behalf of the defendant. I'll be presenting the opening statement as well as conducting the direct examination of Blake Doncourt and the cross-examination of Dakota Weirs.
Thank you. And your volume is just perfect. Thank you.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
if we could have your witnesses.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Matthew Denfin. I will be assuming the role of Blake Doncourt.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Isabella Marquez, and I will be assuming the role of Skylar Weirs.
Thank you. And
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Sarah Chumman, and I will be assuming the role of Devin Williams.
Okay. And now if I could have everybody on video, including our scoring panelists. And I'm going to swear everybody in serially here, starting with the attorneys. And you can leave your audio off. And if you agree to the oath after you raise your hand, just nod your head. So if all the attorneys, all 6 of you, would please raise your right hands. Do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? Thank you. You can lower your hands. All of your witnesses, if you would please raise your right hands, 6 of you. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition? Thank you. Our timekeepers, if you would raise your right hands, timekeepers, do you solemnly affirm that you will keep time accurately in accordance with the rules of the state championship competition? Thank you. And let's see, finally, the scoring panelists, the 4 of you, if you would please raise your right hands. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition? Thank you. Now, all of you except the witnesses. Please, witnesses, leave your video on. The rest of you can drop off for the moment. And my procedure here, it saves a little time going forward. And as you know, these in the past rounds that you've done, these things go long. So if I can save 10 minutes out of a trial, I'm going to do it. What I'm going to do with all of the witnesses is I'm going to swear you all in for your testimony now. If we were live in the courtroom, I'd be doing that individually as you come up, because that's the way it's done in a trial. But this will save a little time. That way, the attorney on direct who calls you to the stand merely has to call you, you appear and start testifying, as opposed to having being sworn in every time. So all 6 of you, if you would raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you very much. Please lower your hands. Okay. Let's see here. Ms. Liebman, anything that we need to address for the plaintiff before we start?
Yes, Your Honor, the plaintiff has a few pretrial matters, if I may proceed.
Right ahead.
Thank you. We first ask that all witnesses be constructively sequestered.
And they are so sequestered so that they are not privy to each other's testimony. Go right ahead.
We also ask to reserve time in closing for rebuttal.
And you may reserve time specifically for rebuttal if you wish. I will ask each attorney doing closing, do you wish to be notified of time for rebuttal? You know, like 2 minutes, where the timekeeper will say, 2 minutes for rebuttal. Otherwise, if you merely wish to have rebuttal, any time you have left is rebuttal time automatically. But you can ask for the timekeeper to notify you of that if you wish. Anything else?
Yes, Your Honor. We also ask that screen sharing for exhibits be constructively blocked from the jury until admitted and published.
Yes, the jury will, I will instruct them not to look at that, although it will be on the screen. We'll assume that they can't see it until I admit it, if it gets admitted.
And finally, we ask that once entered, the screen shared exhibits are considered shared to the jury.
And they are shared, and I may instruct that the exhibit be dropped, when it is finished with. Otherwise, if you do that with your co-counsel or who's ever handling the exhibit, that would be appreciated. Anything else?
Finally, we ask that all of these courtesies be extended to the defense if they so wish.
Of course.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, and Ms. Abraha, anything for the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense asks that in order to save time, we don't have to screen share our exhibits.
That you do not screen share the exhibit?
Yeah.
If you have the ability to do it, I would prefer it. I would prefer seeing it. That way we know what you're talking about, what lines you're talking about. It's just a little easier for the jury, to be quite honest. So if you have that ability, that's great. If you don't have the ability to do it, that's fine. You don't have to screen share, but if you have the ability, I would appreciate doing that. If it appears to me as though it's taking a little more time than normal, I'll add a little time at the end for everybody. So you won't lose time. I may add a minute to everybody's time at the end on both direct and cross. Anything else?
Yes. We also apologize in advance. We can't turn off the school bells, so they might interrupt the trial.
That's okay. As long as it's not a fire drill or something, we'll just ignore it. Anything else?
That's it, Your Honor.
Thank you. And I did forget one thing. My procedure on objections is this. The party making an objection may make an objection if you do not say immediately, like let's say it's a hearsay matter. If you say objection, I'll ask what the objection is. You'll give a very brief, hearsay or rule 404A or whatever it is without any further explanation. I'll go immediately then to opposing counsel on a response, and then there will be that objection, a response, and a reply. And if necessary, the person who makes the objection will get the final word on it. One way or another, I'll give everybody, the objection, a response, a reply, and a response, I guess, or reply, I guess. But in any event, everybody will get 2 chances to talk. If we don't want it to go too long, but I feel that's appropriate, is to do it in that way. So Without further ado, Ms. Liebman, again, ready for trial?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Ms. Abraha, ready to go?
Yes, Your Honor.
And I guess we will have Ms. Moskowitz with opening statement for the plaintiff.
Oh, yes, Your Honor. May I begin?
Yes, you may.
May it please the court. Your Honor, members of the jury, opposing counsel. My name is Hannah Moskowitz, and along with my co-counsel, Kyan Carney and Sophie Liebman, we are here today representing Dakota Weirs, a young man whose life was turned upside down by Lush fertilizer. Now imagine a hot summer afternoon, a hardworking teenager on his hands and knees, lining the pots of gardens with Lush fertilizer. Inside of corporate offices, outside of gardens, Dakota Weirs frequently used Lush fertilizers products that had a binding agent known as Drufo, a chemical that had no warning label despite being banned in the EU. As a result of this repeated use, Dakota developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a detrimental cancer that has destroyed his life. When Dakota was just 14, he began working for a landscaping company, Haven Landscaping, a locally owned business that frequently used the products of Lush fertilizer. But what Dakota didn't know is that while he lined the pots, Lush was lining their pockets. As a teenager, Dakota thrived off of helping others. He was an active member of his community, contributing in his National Honor Society, leading his student government, and even helping out at local homeless shelters when he could. Dakota was also a profoundly talented pianist, even receiving a scholarship to Juilliard. But all of this was stripped away from him when he developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma as a result of Lush fertilizer's negligence. Today, we, the plaintiff, will prove by preponderance of the evidence that Dakota Weirs' non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was as a result of Lush fertilizer's neglect to recall products with the chemical known as Drufo. This means that we will prove that it is more likely than not that Lush's neglect gave Dakota this detrimental illness. Now, Dakota is here today, along with two other witnesses, to prove that Lush is responsible to his development of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, listen carefully to the tragic story of Dakota and pay attention to who lined the pots so Lush could line their pockets. But Dakota's claims will also be backed up by other witnesses. Today, we will also bring Carson Durst to the stand, a woman who dedicated her life to serving to the contributions of Drufo at Lush Fertilizer as a product and development engineer. Durst will detail how studies performed by in-house researchers showed a potential carcinogenic link between Drufo and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Durst will also explain how these studies had one key conclusion: baking Drufo would eliminate the carcinogenic risk. But Durst will explain how the company failed to make their product safer by baking it, choosing to line their pockets rather than help the people. Each of these witnesses will be backed by Dr. Casey Rogers, an unbiased doctor in agriculture whose research will show a carcinogenic nature to Drufo. But this fight for justice is being undermined by the defense, who also brings three witnesses to the stand. Too preoccupied with corporate greed, these members associated with Lush Fertilizer fail to see the irreparable damage they've caused to Dakota, a young man whose bright future is now stripped of the humanitarianism, joy, and music that had made his life worth living. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we must prove that it is more likely than not that Dakota developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma as a result of Lush Fertilizer's neglect. At the end of this trial, my co-counsel, Kyan Carney, will ask you to find in favor of the plaintiff. We thank you for listening to Dakota's story and hope you are moved by his tragedy as we were. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Koster, opening statement for the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. My name is Josie Koster, and I, together with my colleagues, represent the defendant, Lush Fertilizer, who's been wrongly accused of purposely neglecting to warn customers of the dangers of its product. dangers that do not exist. You see, this is a case of classless manipulation by the plaintiff's attorneys of Mr. Weirs. Naturally, in a time of great uncertainty, Mr. Weirs is searching desperately for any explanations to make sense of his suffering. And others see this, particularly Lush's competitors. Taking a hold of Mr. Weirs' fear, like the strings of a puppet, Lush's competitors and the attorneys of the plaintiff are manipulating him, disregarding the facts of the case and taking advantage of his pain to damage Lush's reputation and gain an economic advantage in a very competitive industry, a dynamic common in the world of agritech. Mr. Weirs' disease is real, that's certain, but the accusations against Lush are simply not. Lush spent years thoroughly researching, creating, and testing an environmentally friendly fertilizer that decreases the amount of harmful chemicals both the land and the user is exposed to. This fertilizer has dominated the market for a reason, now being used worldwide. Certainly a position that leaves its competitors envious. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the plaintiff will try to convince you that Lush Fertilizer was negligent in releasing its fertilizer in order to get a competitive edge in the industry. To do so, the plaintiff must clearly show that the Drufo and Lush fertilizer not only generally causes non-Hodgkin lymphoma, but specifically caused Mr. Weirs' non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and that Lush did not take the proper precautions to know of and prevent these dangers. However, as the scientific evidence will prove, this is simply not true. Lush fertilizer underwent intense testing during its development, each time proving its safety. However, even if the plaintiff manages to prove Drufo did cause Mr. Weirs' condition, we will prove that the plaintiff did not take the proper precautions when handling chemicals. As you will hear from Mr. Weirs himself, he continuously failed to wear protective gear while working with various chemicals. As such, Mr. Weirs was recklessly exposed to countless other chemicals in other fertilizers and products while working as a landscaper. Any one of these harsh chemicals likely could have resulted in his condition. To assure you that there has been no negligence on Lush's part, 3 witnesses will be called to the stand. First, you will hear from Mr. Blake Doncourt. Mr. Doncourt is the Chief Executive Officer of Lush Fertilizer and a world-renowned environmentalist. He will give his insight on the company's thorough testing for Lush Fertilizer, which has determined time and time again that there has been no substantiated concern that the use of Drufo is dangerous in any way. Mr. Doncourt will also show you that Carson Durst, one of the plaintiff's lead witnesses, may have ulterior motives for what she has claimed. Next, you'll hear from Ms. Skylar Weirs, Dakota Weirs' twin sister. Ms. Weirs is an investigative journalist who researched and wrote about the safety of Drufo before her brother's diagnosis. Ms. Weirs is very knowledgeable in the world of modern agritech and will tell you about the prominence of bought and paid for pseudoscientific hit jobs. Finally, you hear from Dr. Devin Williams. Dr. Williams leads the toxicology research and development labs at Lush Fertilizer. She will tell you that Drufo is a revolutionary product that is far better for the planet and for people in general than the old generation of fertilizers. The plaintiff will likely try to confuse you by discussing a ban on Drufo in France, implying that Drufo is dangerous. However, as Dr. Williams will show you, this ban is not due to any link to cancer, but because of a blanket directive. It is a ban that could have easily been fought had Lush had the resources at the time. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please do not let the opposition manipulate your ruling with their fabrication of facts, as they have Mr. Weirs. Do not believe the words coming from the puppeteers' mouths. Do not allow their emotional plea to override their burden today, a burden that they will surely not meet. While Mr. Weirs' disease is unfortunate, the plaintiff will not be able to prove that it was caused by Drufo. At the conclusion of this trial, the defense will ask that you find in favor of our client and put an end to this mess that commercial competition has dragged innocents into. Thank you.
Thank you. And I am assuming the first witness will be Dakota Weirs, is that correct? For the plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And Ms. Carney, you'll be directing, and according to my list, Ms. Coster, you will be crossing, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good. And could we have our witness please call him or her to the stand?
Your Honor, at this time, may we call Dakota Weirs to the stand?
And Mr. Weirs, you have been sworn. Ms. Carney, you may begin.
Good morning, Mr. Weirs. Can you please state your name and spell your last for the record?
Yes, my name's Dakota Weirs, W-E-I-R-S.
To start, please introduce yourself to the court and jury.
I'm Dakota Weirs. I'm 20 years old. I'm someone who loves being outside in nature. I also used to be an active participant in my community and of my school and loved playing the piano.
And Mr. Weirs, could you move a little closer? I think the audio would be a little better if you could. Let's try that. Go right ahead, Ms. Carney. Much better. Thank you. Much better.
May I continue?
Yes, that's a little too close, but he'll settle down there in just a second.
All right. Can you hear me well right now?
Much better. Much better.
Okay. Perfect. I'm so sorry. We have an external microphone, so I just had to move that closer.
That's all right. Ms. Carney, go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. You said you love engaging in your community. What do you do for your community?
Well, in the very limited free time that I had, I'd always volunteer at homeless shelters. It was a big part of who I was, helping the community. I would wash dishes, I would serve meals, and be with the less fortunate members of my community. Now, I can't do any of that.
You also said you were an active member in your school. What did you do for your school?
Well, yes, I was an active member of an academic club at our school called National Honor Society. I was also the president of our student body government. I love doing extracurricular activities and participating in my school.
And lastly, along with your previously mentioned hobbies, you mentioned that you love playing the piano. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, piano used to be such a big part of my life. Piano was everything to me. Ever since I was little, I remember waddling up to the grand piano and just playing underneath it. It was so great. I remember when I got old enough to play the piano, I would just hammer on the keys. Piano is wonderful. I would compete in competitions, practice at recitals. I even got so good, I got a full ride scholarship to one of the most prestigious schools of music in New York, Juilliard. It's everything I dreamed of.
And now, why are you here today?
Well, fortunately, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. I can't do anything that I used to do. I can't participate in school. I can't play the piano, and I can't help in my community. Everything has been taken from me, and that is why I'm suing.
And now, when did you start working?
Well, I started working at age 14.
And who did you work for?
I worked for the small landscaping company known as Haven Landscaping.
And why did you work?
I just loved being outdoors, feeling the wind on my face. And I also needed some money, of course, for school. So it just seemed like the perfect fit.
And at work, where specifically did you work?
Well, I worked everywhere they put me to work. Soccer fields, resorts, neighborhoods, golf courses, office buildings, honestly, anywhere.
And what was your main role at Haven Landscape Company?
I mean, I was kind of young to be working with big machinery. So instead of managing the big machinery that the landscaping required, I would just work with the application of fertilizers and other chemicals.
And to be more precise, can you explain exactly what you did with the fertilizer?
Well, yeah, it was pretty simple. You would have a pot. I would grab my spray fertilizer and just spray it around the pot. It's really simple.
Now, what did you wear when you would work?
I mean, it was summer while I worked, and like any normal person, when it's warm, I would wear shorts and a short sleeve t-shirt, just as all of my coworkers.
Now, what happened when you were just about to leave for Juilliard?
It was absolutely horrible. I began to feel awful. I had rapid weight loss. My abdomen sometimes swelled to double its size. I remembered that I just felt horrible and I had no energy to do anything. Felt horribly fatigued. And of course, I wanted to see what was wrong with me. So I went to the hospital bill and accumulated a large amount of hospital fees.
And after those many doctor's visits, what was the final conclusion?
It turned out that I had non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
Now, how did you hear about the drug Drufo?
Well, now that I couldn't do anything, couldn't play the piano, couldn't participate in school or the community, all I could do was really sit on the couch and watch the TV. So that's what I was doing one day when I heard of a news story covering that Drufo could cause non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I'm showing the opposing counsel a clean and unmarked copy of what has been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 1.
You may post Exhibit 1 for identification.
Can you clearly see that, Mr. Weirs?
Yes, I can.
I am showing you what has been marked as Exhibit 1. Do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
Well, this is the Lush fertilizer packaging.
And how are you familiar with it?
Well, I contacted my manager after finding out that Lush fertilizer was incredibly harmful, and this was a picture of the back of the packaging that he sent me.
Does this document fairly and accurately represent the Lush fertilizer packaging you and your dad found?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, at this time, I offer Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Ms. Coster, any objection to Exhibit 1?
No objections, Your Honor.
Exhibit 1 is admitted. Ms. Carney, you may proceed. And the Exhibit 1 is effectively posted to the jury.
Thank you, Your Honor. Why did this piece of news stand out to you, Mr. Weirs?
I mean, nowhere on this exhibit does it talk about non-Hodgkin lymphoma that Lush fertilizer could cause, nor does it provide adequate warning on how to avoid getting Lush fertilizer. It's insane.
And after seeing this label, did you and your father do any more research regarding this product?
Yeah, absolutely. We learned that Lush fertilizer was sold all over the world.
Did you find anything specifically in your research?
Yes, well, it turns out that there was also Lush fertilizer that was sold in France.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I'm showing the opposing counsel a clean and unmarked copy of what has been marked for identification purposes as evidence number 2, or yes.
Let's see, we don't have Exhibit 2 up yet.
She's just, we'll be back in a second quickly. Yeah. Mr. Weirs, can you clearly see Exhibit 2 on your screen?
Yes, I can.
Do you recognize this?
Yes, I can.
And what is it?
Well, this is the Lush fertilizer packaging that has been translated from the French Lush fertilizer over into English.
And how are you familiar with it?
This is the Lush fertilizer packaging that my father and I found after doing more research.
Does this document fairly and accurately represent the Lush fertilizer ingredient list that you and your dad found?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, at this time, I offer Exhibit 2 into evidence.
And Ms. Coster, any objection to Exhibit 2?
Yes, Your Honor, hearsay.
Yes, you may, that it is hearsay. Ms. And what part of this are you alleging is hearsay? Any particular part or the entire document?
The entire document, specifically partially the France part, as it was the plaintiff's father who found it and not him himself.
He indicated that they found it, but let me hear what Ms. Carney has to say.
Your Honor, well, as you said, both him and his father found it. And in regards to hearsay, this is not hearsay because it's a statement made by the party opponent.
And Ms. Coster?
No response, Your Honor.
All right. There could be an argument here that this document is not the original document. It is a translation of the—
Your Honor, do you want me to defend that point?
You may.
Under Rule 1003, admission of duplicates, a duplicate is admissible to the same extent as the original unless the genuine question is raised about the original's authenticity. And given that this ingredient list was previously stated it was in French, there would be no reason as to why we wouldn't translate it to English for today's case.
Right, but so you're not saying that it is a duplicate of the French document. You're saying it is a translation of the French document, correct? All right, I
Yes.
don't think that's covered under 1003 simply because that is duplicates, exact replicas, not translations. There could be an objection to that. There has not been. So I'm going to admit Exhibit 2 in the absence of an objection regarding this, the fact that this is not the original or even a duplicate of the original. It's a translation. Nonetheless, it is in. Exhibit 2 is admitted. Jury may see it. And Ms. Carney, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. What did you notice about this label's ingredients, Mr. Weirs?
Oh, these are just the ingredients that are on the Lush fertilizer packaging.
And what specifically did you notice was not included in the ingredients list?
Oh, you can't see any sign of Drufo.
Now, moving on, who is Skylar Weirs?
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I couldn't really see anything. Okay, well, Skylar Weirs, she's my fraternal twin.
And what happened between you and Skylar?
Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse as her gambling debts started piling up, and we just haven't been that close ever since.
Now, after this horrible diagnosis, what is your outlook on life?
Honestly, the one thing that I've learned is to truly appreciate everything that you have.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevancy.
And Ms. Carney?
This is relevant because it is showing what his mental state is after this diagnosis, and it's just relevant to today's case.
Ms. Coster?
Yes, Your Honor. I don't believe that this is relevant because it is asking his mental state, which is not part of this emotional damages.
Because we have twins here testifying on either side of this case, I feel that the issue of their relationship is relevant due to their just issues of credibility of one sibling testifying against another. So I'll allow it over objection. Objection is Ms. Carney, you may proceed.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
And Ms. Coster, cross-exam.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Weirs. My name is Jessie Coster, and I will be conducting your cross-examination today. Let's begin by discussing your sister, Skylar Weirs. Your relationship with your sister is strained due to financial stress, correct?
I mean, I guess you could say that. We're just not that close anymore.
And this, in large part, is because of your medical bills, as you stated, correct?
Well, I don't know why she dislikes me, but that could be one of the reasons.
But if you win this case, you will receive money, correct?
Yes, I will.
Meaning that at least some of your own financial stress will be alleviated?
I don't really have financial stress if my parents are paying for all my hospital bills.
You are dependent on your family's money, correct? For your hospital bills?
Yes, I am. I'm pretty young and I don't have enough money to pay for them, so they're paying for my hospital bills.
And as you have stated, your sister is, your conflict with your sister is partially because of your family's financial situation, correct?
You could say that, but I think that we've also just haven't been as close to one another, but the financial conflicts in our family could have added to that.
So if you win this case today, you will receive money, correct?
Yes, as I've previously
Your Honor,
said.
objection asked and answered.
It has been asked and answered, although in the context of all those other questions, I'll allow it. Objection overruled. You may continue.
Meaning that at least some of your own financial stress will be alleviated as you will be receiving money, correct?
I mean, more money could always help pay for hospital bills, but I do not really have significant financial stress.
And since your family is paying for your hospital bills, you receiving money will in turn relieve stress off of your family as a whole?
I guess you could say that once again, more money could help alleviate stress, but we do not have significant financial stress within our family.
And yet your sister is still testifying against you?
Not for financial reasons. Matter of fact, if I win this case and win money, her financial stress will be alleviated.
Let's move on now to your handling of Lush fertilizer. Your Honor, I'm now going to refer the witness to what has been previously marked as Exhibit 1, which has already been entered as evidence.
Thank you.
Your Honor, permission to screen share the exhibit for the purposes of the trial.
Yes, you may.
My co-counsel who is screen sharing the exhibit just said that she's in the waiting room.
Well, if they're not there, you may go ahead. We will assume that Exhibit 1 is up.
Okay, yes, Your Honor, thank you.
And if it comes up,
I
then
admitted them.
that's fine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you please read do you have it in front of you? Are you able to grab that in front of you?
I can.
If not, I can try to screen share myself.
That would help. Yes, I don't have it up right. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. There you go. Could you please read the user safety recommendations for me as they are written on the label?
Yes, I can. As with any spray fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin. Use of a respirator or N95 mask is recommended. Follow manufacturer instructions for cleaning, maintaining personal protective equipment, PPE. Users should wash hands before and after the use of this product.
Thank you. Your boss instructed you to cover your face and skin when handling products, correct?
He instructed me, yes.
And yet you chose not to?
Well, no, I did not know that these products could cause non-Hodgkin lymphoma, so I didn't find any reason to do so.
And so if they required long sleeves, pants, and gloves when working with any fertilizer, you wore shorts and t-shirts, correct?
Yes, it was also during the summer, and as there wasn't significant reason to wear protective gear when handling these chemicals, as I did not know their toxicity, I wore shorts and shirts.
And you also refused to follow your boss's instructions to cover your face when working with chemicals?
It wasn't that I refused his instructions, but they weren't directly emphasized.
Let's now discuss other possible origins to your condition. You used several other fertilizers and lawn chemicals during your time at Haven Landscaping, correct?
Yes, but Haven Landscaping Lush fertilizer products were primarily used.
But you used other ones, correct?
Of course.
And lots of these other fertilizers and chemicals you used had some sort of warning on the packaging?
Well, yes, many fertilizers did have warnings, yes.
Meaning that at least some of these other fertilizers and chemicals were known to cause various dangers.
Yes, they were.
Yet your failure to follow protocol with protective covering was not limited to just while you were using Lush fertilizer?
I assume not, no.
Meaning that you failed to wear protective covering while using these other chemicals and fertilizers as well?
To be totally honest, it's not that I read every single word on the back of every piece of packaging that I worked with, as this would require too much time. But in that sense, I did fail to meet some warnings.
So as you said that, there's no mention in your testimony that you collected the labels and warnings of any other product you had used while on your job other than Lush fertilizer?
Well, once again, all of these other products do not have significant link to non-Hodgkin lymphoma, so did not find need to do so.
Is there anywhere in your testimony that says that you checked for any other link to non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
I didn't find it necessary, as it was directly shown that non-Hodgkin lymphoma could be caused by Lush fertilizer.
So just to be clear, you didn't look for any other link to non-Hodgkin lymphoma in any of these other chemicals?
Once again, it wasn't needed, as I had a pretty significant conclusive link that Lush fertilizer products could cause my non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Ms. Carney, redirect.
Yes, Your Honor, a brief one. How old were you when you started working, Mr. Weirs?
I was young, I was 14.
And Mr. Weirs, had you ever seen the warning on the packaging, excuse me?
Well, the thing is, as a 14-year-old, it's not like I go around reading every single piece of fertilizer packaging. So no, I didn't find it necessary.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
And Ms. Coster, cross on that issue?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. And Mr. Weir, your testimony is concluded. You are excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And I believe Ms. Moskowitz, you have the next witness. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And if you would call your witness, I believe we also have, let's see here, Mr., is it pronounced Highness? Is on cross,
Yes, Your Honor.
and that's the pronunciation of your name?
Yes.
Oop, we're getting a little feedback from somewhere, but hopefully that's remedied. Ms. Moskowitz, you may call your witness.
Sorry, Your Honor. Are you getting feedback?
Not now.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, I'd like to call Ms. Carson Durst to the stand.
And Ms. Durst, you have been sworn. Ms. Moskowitz, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Before you start, I want to make sure I'm not noticing a big time differential between the timekeepers here. Could you post time remaining on direct for the Phyllis team? Is that 20 minutes? I don't think it is.
Direct.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I hadn't paged down here. My 1637, and for the Kelly team, what have you got? I thought I saw 15 minutes slide up there 5 minutes ago. That's why I'm asking.
Your Honor, I believe that was for the cross-examination for the Kelly team.
Yes, apologies, Your Honor. That was for the cross-examination. I'm also at 1637 remaining for plaintiff direct.
I'm sorry. I confused the direct and the cross. Thank you very much.
No worries, Your
And Ms. Moskowitz, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Durst. Would you please state your name and spell the last for the court?
Good morning. My name is Miss Carson Durst, spelled D-U-R-S-T.
And Ms. Moskowitz, do you have the ability to move forward just a little bit? That will improve our audio. We're getting a little bit of an echo, not a feedback, just an echo. That'll do just fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes, I can.
All right, Ms. Durst, would you please explain your educational background?
Of course. Well, I've always been really connected with the natural world, and it pushed me to receive a degree from Arizona State University in chemical engineering. And my degree led me to the role where I'm currently the head of research and development team at Terra's Greenery.
And you've mentioned that you were the head of research and development at Terra's Greenery. Have you done this sort of work previously?
Yes, absolutely. I have overseen the development of lawn enhancement products under Lush Fertilizer.
And how did you receive this job at Lush?
Well, I was really tight with the Doncourt family. I'd grown up with their son, Charlie Doncourt. Blake knew that I was extremely gifted in chemical engineering after hearing all my stories coming from Arizona State. And well, they offered me an internship to hone in my skills.
And what was it like working at this internship at Lush?
Well, at first, it was great. I got a lot of good experience dealing with fertilizer development. My quick learning skills and talent led me to be promoted full-time product development on the engineering team due to my strong performance.
And on the product development engineering team, what was your main focus?
My biggest assignment, as I recall, was working to develop the chemical Drufo. This was a revolutionary fertilizer product that was created by Lush Fertilizer. I was tasked with researching one of the chemical compounds during an in-house study in the company.
And during one of these in-house studies, did you find any studies that linked Drufo to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or cancer in general?
Yes, in fact, I found a study from England which concluded that the particular chemical compounds may be carcinogenic in rats.
Objection, Your Honor, to the witness's answer to that question, as it is to hearsay.
Ms. Moskowitz, as to the hearsay objection.
Your Honor, that question was merely foundational as to the fact that there was a study and also just to the knowledge of the study. However, we can enter it into evidence and prove it as an exception to hearsay under regularly conducted business activity.
Your Honor, can I respond?
Mr. Highness.
Yes, can I respond, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
As it may have been done regularly, this is an out of court document done not by Lush Fertilizer, so was not done in-house, and it was also done by a third party.
And Ms. Moskowitz, I'll give you the last word on this.
Yes, Your Honor. There are several rules that would admit this as an exception to hearsay. Under 8038, it is a public record as it is a study from England, which I can lay foundation for. Additionally, the study was a periodical, and under 80318 is thus an exception to hearsay.
I'm going to overrule the objection and admit this document if, and I stress if, it is hearsay. I believe there are exceptions as noted by Ms. Moskowitz. I haven't heard enough yet to see if this document is being offered for its truth, other than just that it exists and it is part of what was reviewed, not being offered for the truth of what it was reviewed. So either way, I'll admit it. I will overrule the objection. Ms. Moskowitz, you may continue.
Thank you. And Ms. Durst, who was the publisher of this study?
Well, as I recall, it was the English Board of Scientific Study, specifically the European Foundation of Oncology and Environmental Sciences.
All right, we have Exhibit 3 on the screen for identification. It has not yet been admitted because I've had no motion to admit it.
Apologies, Your Honor, I can do that now.
You may.
All right. Let the record reflect, I am showing opposing counsel what is a clean and unmarked copy of what has previously been marked as Exhibit 3. Now, Ms. Durst, do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes.
And how do you recognize it?
I was the one who found and researched this study particularly.
And is this a fair and accurate representation?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to enter Exhibit 3 into evidence.
And Mr. Highness, other than the objections that I've already ruled on regarding hearsay, it is now being offered for its truth. And I have ruled on the hearsay part of this. Any objections other than that to Exhibit 3?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 3 then is admitted. Ms. Moskowitz, you may proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Durst, what does the study in front of you reveal about Drufo?
The results of this study show that the compound does exhibit carcinogenic potential and it increases the incidence of leukemia. Moreover, the final conclusion states the compound is especially dangerous to children.
Thank you. Now, this study does mention that it increases cancer effects in rats. Why can this conclusion be determined that it can harm women and children from a study on rats?
Well, rats are genetically very similar to humans. The close genetic makeup and the fact that it is allows for this correlation to be made, and the fact that it is immoral to give humans cancer means that rats are often used in these types of studies across the board in the scientific world.
Thank you. Now, what measures did Lush take following this study?
They issued a statement saying that they would perform another study to test the concerns about the carcinogenic nature of Drufo found in these first experiments.
And were all company heads aware of this concern?
Yes, in fact, they were. Drufo's product manager, Jerry Langley, issued a statement on behalf of the company that was forwarded to everyone, including Blake Toncourt.
Your Honor, at this time, let the record reflect that I am showing opposing counsel a clean and unmarked copy of what has previously been marked as Exhibit 4.
All right, before we deal with Exhibit 4, it is being posted for identification. I'm going to adjust the basis for my ruling on the previous exhibit, not the result, but the basis. Based on the testimony, this document is not being offered for its truth, only the fact that the company considered it and then took action on it. Therefore, it's not being offered for its truth. It is not hearsay. It is still admitted. So let's proceed on that basis.
Thank you. And do you recognize this exhibit, Ms. Durst?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize it?
I was sent this email following my research on the first study.
And is this a fair and accurate representation of Exhibit 4?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to enter Exhibit 4 into evidence.
And Mr. Highness, any objection to Exhibit 4?
No objections, Your Honor.
Exhibit 4 is admitted. Ms. Moskowitz, you may proceed.
Thank you. Now, this email mentions a second study. What did the second study find?
There was research from other scientists that showed Drufo may not only be carcinogenic, but specifically linked to non-Hodgkin lymphoma. The reports recommended baking Drufo to eliminate these chances.
And how did Lush respond to the second study?
Well, they issued a statement essentially ignoring the research because it wasn't statistically significant enough, or so they say, for them to take these precautionary measures. Not only did they ignore these reports, but they failed to conclude it in their final published study.
Now, does baking the Drufo completely eliminate the carcinogenic risk?
Completely.
How does it do this?
Well, some compounds interact directly with DNA, while others are activated to reactive molecules that can bind with the DNA by covalent adducts causing mutations in genes to be crucial to biological processes. By baking Drufo, we denature the bonds in this compound that act as growth factors for the cancer.
So if baking the Drufo could completely eliminate the carcinogenic effects, why didn't Lush take this measure?
Lush was in some financial trouble due to a contentious divorce with the CEO and their spouse. The ultimate goal of Lush was to line their pockets while people lined their pots. All they cared about was the profits and not the people that they were hurting.
Objection, Your Honor, on the grounds of speculation.
Ms. Moskowitz?
Your Honor, this is based on what the intimate knowledge that Ms. Doncourt has both as a close family friend with the Doncourts.
Then she will need to testify to that. You may lay that foundation with her if you wish.
All right.
And then I will rule on the objection.
Ms. Doncourt, you mentioned previously that it was Blake Doncourt, or sorry, Ms. Durst, you mentioned previously that it was Blake Doncourt that gave you the job at Lush. How close were you with the Doncourt family?
Very close. We were family friends and I was best friends with their son.
Were you around his son for a number of years?
Oh yes, we went to soccer games together. We spent summers on their lake house. And then over breaks in college, I would always spend so much time catching up with the Doncourts. And we only got closer after I started working at Lush Fertilizer.
Thank you. Now, are you all right, Ms. Durst? All right. So based on your knowledge, intimate knowledge of the Doncourt family and your involvement with the company, why didn't Lush take this precaution?
Well, Lush was in some financial trouble. I believe it was due to the divorce that Blake Doncourt was going through. And they had really prioritized the profits that they were making and lining their pockets rather than the people working for them who were lining the pots.
I will allow that testimony and overrule the previous objection. Ms. Moskowitz, you may continue.
Thank you. Now, how did your tenure with Lush Fertilizer eventually come to a close?
Well, I had brought up my discontentment with their actions several times, and it did in fact result in me being fired. I was definitely angry at first, but it was honestly the best for me because I had grown in so many opportunities at Terra's Greenery. It is good wages and good work, and is something I can be proud of, unlike what I was working for at Lush.
But were there any issues with these good wages and good work at Terra's Greenery?
Well, I was hired at Terra's Greenery soon after I had left Lush Fertilizer, and I had unfortunately forgotten about the fine print of a contract that I had signed years ago. And this I had signed with Lush Fertilizer when I first joined. It had been so long I completely forgot about it.
Now, this contract you're referring to, is it something that Lush typically does with every new hire?
Yes, typically with those with exceptional skills and knowledge in the field, such as myself, often have to deal with non-compete agreements to keep the trade secrets and skills within the company walls.
Let the record reflect I'm showing opposing counsel what has been previously marked as Exhibit 5. Now, Ms. Durst, what is this?
This is the non-compete agreement I had signed when I first joined the Lush Fertilizer team.
And is it a fair and accurate representation?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to enter Exhibit 5 into evidence.
Mr. Highness, any objection to Exhibit 5?
No objections, Your Honor.
Exhibit 5 is in evidence. Ms. Moskowitz, you may proceed.
Now, what did Lush do in retaliation for simply forgetting about this fine print?
Well, naturally, as this was protocol, they took me to court where we quarterly came to an agreement. I completely understand where they were coming from. I just wish it didn't have to end so uncleanly because I really did like the company and the Doncourt family.
Did you comply with all other agreements in your contract?
Yes, absolutely. I just simply forgot something that I had signed a long time ago, I believe 5 years.
But since it was so long ago, do you harbor any ill feelings towards the company?
Of course not. Not only was I good family friends with Blake Doncourt before this, but I'm here because I care about the people lining the pots, not the people who are lining their pockets.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
And Mr. Highness, cross-exam.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Durst. My name is Zach Highness, and I will be conducting your cross today.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to direct your attention to your relationship with the Doncourts. Ms. Durst, did you meet Charles Doncourt as a kid?
Yes, I did. We were really close friends.
And you spent time with his family as a kid, correct?
Correct.
And so therefore you also knew Blake Doncourt?
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, did any other applicants for the Lush jobs have the same relationship with Blake Doncourt?
I don't know what the relationship of other people were with Blake Doncourt in the application process. No.
Okay. And thank you. And you know that if you applied to Lush, Blake would pull some strings for you for the internship, correct?
I do know that I had formed a business connection that did help me on the hiring process. That being said, it did not help. It was not the cause of me growing through the ranks at Lush Fertilizer. That was my own work ethic.
But it was why you got the job in the first place, correct?
That is correct, as do many in the business field.
Thank you. And so you had an advantage over other applicants because of this business relationship?
I would say so, yes, but it wasn't due to a lack of work ethic. Blake Doncourt had seen how hard I worked in my undergraduate college experience, had seen me tackle a very rigorous major of chemical engineering, and admired my work ethic.
Thank you. But you still had an advantage over other applicants, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to direct your attention to your work at Lush Fertilizer. There were complaints about your work at Lush Fertilizer, correct?
There were whispers around the water cooler, but I can assure you they were completely false.
However, this caused you to get put on a performance improvement plan?
That is correct. It's procedural, and many of my colleagues had received one before as well.
And were you frustrated about this plan?
I mean, naturally, I take a lot of pride in my work, and I've never cheated on a test in my life. So when it was questioned, I was slightly frustrated, but this was also on top of the fact that Lush Fertilizer was producing a harmful chemical, and that's where most of my frustrations arose.
And so you turned to Mr. Doncourt to try and help you out once again?
Well, I had talked to Mr. Doncourt about my issues with the carcinogenic chemical being released. Yes.
And you had a meeting with him, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And did you get the help and answer you wanted from Mr. Doncourt?
Well, not particularly. Mr. Doncourt was going through a very contentious and financially burdensome divorce, so a lot was on his plate.
And you turned to another company after your conversation with Mr. Doncourt, correct?
Well, I could see that Lush Fertilizer was no longer taking care of the people that worked for them. So yes, I had begun looking for new jobs.
And as you stated before in your direct, you did sign a non-compete agreement with Lush Fertilizer, correct?
Yes, at the outset of my employment at Lush Fertilizer, which was years before all of this happened.
and you got sued for breaking it?
I was brought to court as a routine, and we cordially settled on the dispute of this contract.
And yet there were still, issues still came from it because you broke it, correct?
The issues were what was brought up in court, and we had settled.
Okay. And I'd now like to direct your attention to the specific study on Drufo itself. Do you currently work for Lush Fertilizer?
I do not currently work for Lush Fertilizer.
And what was your job, Ms. Durst?
When I worked for Lush Fertilizer?
Yes, sorry.
Yes, I was on the product development team.
And did you specifically do the experiments on Drufo?
Well, the initial experiment, I was on the research and development team. So I had encountered this, which was a valid scientific study that was published by a European organization. The second study was in-house, and I was part of the development team.
But you did not do the experiments yourself, correct? You analyzed the data that was collected from your scientists?
Again, in the scientific community, one cannot perform an experiment entirely by themselves. So no, I was on this team.
Thank you. And so then you cannot say with absolute certainty that these experiments were flawed since you did not do it yourself?
I believe that these studies were entirely valid. If not, I wouldn't have brought them up to to my higher rankings when I worked at Lush Fertilizer.
But since you did not do them yourself, you can't say that. Can you say that they were flawed?
Can I say that they were flawed?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
Thank you. And was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma specifically addressed anywhere in the report on Drufo that you were given?
Could you repeat that question? Sorry.
Yes. Was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma ever directly addressed in the report that Drufo that you were given?
Well, not in the first study, but in the second study, the link to non-Hodgkin lymphoma that we had performed in-house was addressed.
But it still was not contained in the initial Drufo report that you were given, correct?
Again, the initial Drufo report had prompted us to work specifically with the causational link to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
When you did your analyses, did you have access to everyone else's research?
My initial analyses? No, I did not. My job is to present the research findings, and then the company can do with it as it will.
And did you know what the final compiled report contained that went to upper management?
Well, aside from the email that had talked about the causational linkage between Drufo and cancer, that is the extent of my knowledge. And for me, this was sufficient to conclude that Lush was not handling its company well.
But you did not know what the final compiled report was that was given to upper management, correct?
Again, as a part of a team, no, I did not have access to all of the information, just sufficient information.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Moskowitz, redirect.
Briefly, Your Honor. Ms. Durst, what qualifications truly got you your job at Lush?
Well, to begin, my hard work ethic, my skills and determination and completion of a very rigorous academic major that impressed Ms. Doncourt, and he took a chance on me, and I believe that I had shown that as I again had moved up quickly within the ranks of Lush Fertilizer.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Mr. Highness, recross on that issue?
No recross, Your Honor.
Thank you. And Ms. Durst, that concludes your testimony. You are excused. And Ms. Liebman will have the plaintiff's final witness. And you may call Dr. Rogers to the stand.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, we call Dr. Rogers to the stand.
Dr. Rogers, you have been sworn. Ms. Liebman, you may continue.
Before we begin, may I request a brief time check?
You bet. On direct, what have we got? Looks like 6 minutes on one side. Is that accurate, Mr. Brandt?
I also have exactly 6 minutes, Your Honor.
Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Rogers, why are you here today?
I'm here today to give my expert opinion on the carcinogenic side effects of the chemical Drufo within Lush Fertilizer.
And where are you currently employed?
I work as a professor at University of California in Berkeley in the entomology and horticulture department.
Let's discuss your qualifications. Could you please outline your educational background for the judge and jury?
Sure. So I got my Bachelor's of Science degree at Colorado State University in chemistry and agriculture. And then I went on to get my PhD at University of California, Berkeley, where I got my PhD in entomology and agriculture.
What did you do before you got your PhD in entomology and agriculture?
Well, before getting my PhD, I worked as a research journalist for a large multinational chemical company.
What did you do in this job?
In this job, a large portion of it was looking at data and statistics and interpreting these numbers to help companies make rational decisions.
Have you done any work or research specifically related to DRUFO?
I have. For about 8 or 9 years now, I've been writing reports and doing studies on the chemical DRUFO. I have done reports on things on its environmental impacts, on weeds or things like that. But more recently, I've also shifted to a focus on the effects on the human body of the chemical.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I'm screen sharing a clean and unmarked version of what has been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 6 and 7. Here is Exhibit 6, and here is Exhibit 7. Dr. Rogers, do you recognize these photos?
Yes, so Exhibit 6 is my CV, and it lists my educational background along with research experience. And Exhibit 7 is a list of my publications.
Are these fair and accurate representations of your experience and publications?
Yes, they both are.
I move to admit Exhibit 6 and Exhibit 7 into evidence.
And Ms. Abraha, any objection to 6 and/or 7?
No objection, Your Honor.
There being no objection to 6 or 7, notwithstanding the case that they are essentially hearsay because the witness can testify to all of these himself, I will admit them because there's no objection. You may continue.
Under Rule 702, I now move to enter Dr. Rogers as an expert in agriculture, horticulture, and chemistry.
Agriculture, horticulture, and chemistry. And if we could drop Exhibit 6 and 7, please.
I will be questioning the witness on these briefly, but I can drop these until I will be questioning the witness, if that's what you prefer, Your Honor.
Thank you. Yes. There we go. And Ms. Abraha, any objection to qualifying this witness in agriculture, chemistry, and entomology, correct?
Horticulture, not entomology.
Horticulture, I'm sorry. Horticulture, chemistry, and or agriculture.
Yes, Your Honor, a short point here.
Yes, you may.
Are you currently employed as a professor of agriculture and entomology?
Yes, that is correct.
And this is your primary focus at the time?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sorry. This is your primary focus at the time?
Yes, my primary focus is working as a professor.
And you only have a bachelor's in chemistry and agriculture, correct?
Well, I have a bachelor's in those subjects, and then I went on to get my PhD in subjects related to agriculture.
And your PhD is only in agriculture and entomology?
Yes, but those overlap greatly with the field of chemistry.
And isn't entomology the study of insects?
Yes, but I'm not being offered for an expert in the field of entomology today.
Your Honor, the defense objects to Dr. Casey Rogers being admitted as an expert in agriculture and chemistry because Dr. Rogers does not have the qualifications under Rule of Evidence 702.
And Ms. Liebman?
Your Honor, under Rule 702, if scientific, technical, or other specialized knowledge will assist the trier of fact to understand the evidence or determine a fact and issue, a witness qualified as an expert by knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education may testify to an opinion in these. And Dr. Casey Rogers has been shown to have education and experience in agriculture, horticulture, and chemistry.
And Ms. Abraha, final word?
No response, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm going to admit the witness on under horticulture as expertise as to horticulture, chemistry, and agriculture, although some of those areas he may have more education or experience than others. That is a matter of weight of his testimony for the jury, not admissibility of that testimony or qualification to testify to those areas. So the objection's overruled. Ms. Liebman, you may continue.
Permission to resume screen sharing of Exhibits 6 and 7.
Yes, you may.
Dr. Rogers, please allow me to direct your attention to your curriculum vitae. Please elaborate on your current project.
Sure. So some of my current projects just include research into the chemical Drufo and its effects on the human body, along as teaching my courses about agriculture at UC Berkeley.
Now, please allow me to direct your attention to your research publications. Can you elaborate on your Drufo-related studies?
Yeah, sure. So that one in the slightly blue color, the second to last one from 2019, was my most recent study on the chemical Drufo, and it looks specifically at its impact on the human body. It was a big honor for me because it was published in The Environmentalist, which was a big step for my career.
Now, let's move on to Drufo and Lush fertilizer. What is Drufo?
Well, the chemical Drufo is a patented bonding agent by the company Lush Fertilizer that is essentially just works to keep the fertilizer intact.
Why were you first prompted to study Drufo and non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Well, when the chemical was first released to market, I had concerns about its potentially carcinogenic nature or other harmful side effects.
And what did you find in your study?
Well, the results were actually quite surprising. So I began my study by looking at a group of people. I looked at groups of farmers or gardeners who use the chemical regularly, a group of people who sometimes use the chemical, and a group of people who often use and people who never use the chemical, excuse me. And so from there, I found that people who regularly use the chemical Drufo were actually 10 times more likely to develop cancers than people who had never used the chemical. And those who had sometimes used it were 5 times more likely to develop cancer.
In your expert opinion, what do these results suggest?
Well, they certainly show a clear correlation between the use of the chemical Drufo and development of cancer. And when we see a correlation this strong, it becomes more probable than not that the chemical Drufo is carcinogenic.
Moving on, in preparing for this case, what records did you analyze?
I looked at the medical as well as employment records of Dakota Weirs, the plaintiff.
And what information did these medical records contain?
I found that Mr.
Objection,
Weirs.
Your Honor, hearsay.
And Ms. Liebman?
Yes, Your Honor. Under Rule 703, this is an exception to hearsay because if the evidence is relied upon by the experts in the field, it can be admitted even if it's hearsay.
And Ms. Abraham?
As this witness is an expert in agriculture and horticulture, I don't believe that his expertise broadened into Dakota Weirs' medical history.
Ms. Liebman, if you can lay a foundation that this witness in the normal course of his job of what he does as a professor and other people in the same job does, if they look at this type of medical record, I'll allow it. You'll have to lay that foundation though with him that this is something that he looks at usually in these types of cases.
Your Honor, actually, I don't believe that this is hearsay because it's not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. It's simply being offered to show its effect on the listener. In this case, Dr. Casey Rogers, to form his expert opinion specifically in his fields of expertise.
There's an expansion of the objection, Ms. Abraham.
Your Honor, she was asking the witness to testify as to what was on these documents.
And Ms. Liebman, final word on it?
Regardless, the contents of the document are still not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. I'm just simply asking the witness to relay what helped him to form his opinion. Well,
if it's forming his opinion, it's being offered for its truth. It's not like a company acting on something. It is merely, rather this doctor relying on it as true to form his opinion. So he'll need to testify that he looks at these documents normally in a case like this. If so, I'll allow it. But you'll have to lay that foundation with him.
Dr. Casey Rogers, when reviewing for this, I think I'll just move on, Your Honor.
Okay, that's fine.
Dr. Rogers, in your study and observations, how did the employers provide protections for the workers?
Well, sadly, they didn't. It was very rare.
Moving on, did you learn anything about non-Hodgkin lymphoma in your study?
Yeah, I learned quite a bit actually. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is essentially a type of lymphoma that does not contain wheat
Objection, Your Honor. This is out of the witness's expertise.
And how so?
He's talking about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and what it is and everything, and his expertise on agriculture and horticulture.
Ms. Liebman.
Your Honor, this witness has testified that he has experience with researching specifically how these products have an effect on the human body. Additionally, he did learn about this in his study, studying specifically the relationship.
I'm going to overrule the objection. Dr. Rogers testified that he studied Drufo, and within the study of Drufo is this disease it causes. And that's apparently not, that hasn't been challenged. So I'm going to overrule the objection. It's within his study of Drufo specifically. Ms. Liebman, you may continue.
Dr. Rogers, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
What did you learn about non-Hodgkin lymphoma during your study?
Well, essentially, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is just a type of lymphoma without Reed-Sternberg cells, which makes it more dangerous and slightly more common.
And how does this study relate specifically to Dakota Weir's non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Well, this study relates basically how Dakota Weir's would have developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was from damaged cells by the chemical Drufo entering his body and building up in the space between his lungs and skin tissue.
In your expert opinion, do you believe that prolonged exposure to Drufo caused Dakota Weir's non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
It is medically highly probable that it caused Dakota Weir's non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. And Ms. Abraha, cross-exam.
Yes, Your Honor. Are you being paid to be here by the plaintiff?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Dr. Rogers, are you being paid to be here by the plaintiff today?
Yes, I believe I am.
And you gained an interest in Drufo because you believed it was rushed, correct?
Yes, I believe that the chemical was rushed to market. That became very clear to me as soon as it was released due to potentially carcinogenic side effects.
And you believe that there weren't sufficient studies on its safety?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sorry. This led you to conducting your own studies, correct?
Yes, I conducted my own studies from that.
Did you ever do an analysis of the safety study conducted by Lush Fertilizer?
An analysis of what?
Of the studies conducted by Lush Fertilizer.
No, those studies weren't brought to my attention. I mainly just looked at my own studies.
So you just think the studies that they had done were rushed, correct?
Yes, I see what you mean now. So yes, I had just from looking over them in general, I was able to tell that they were rushed just from clear, obvious signs from it. I didn't do a formal report or anything with those studies, but yes, I had looked at them.
Thank you. Was your study on Drufo peer-reviewed?
My study on Drufo, I've had a lot of studies, so I'm trying to remember. I don't remember if my study had been peer-reviewed. I believe it had been though.
Let's move on. You put together your own study to evaluate the long-term effect of Drufo, correct?
Yes, I created my own study.
And the study involved people who were exposed to Drufo on numerous levels, correct?
Yes, so I looked at a group of people who were often exposed to the chemical or daily, people who were sometimes exposed to the chemical. And then, as is often the case with scientific research, I looked at a control group of people who had never used the chemical Drufo.
Thank you. And these people were all exposed to vastly different environments and situations, correct?
I suppose on an individual basis, that's true. But once you look at such a large sample size, sure, individuals had different lifestyles. But when you have big samples of people in each group, they tend to be generally the same.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. So would you agree that there were a lot of unaccounted for variables in this experiment?
I wouldn't say I agreed to that. We monitored various health conditions within the people, and we monitored over a long period of time. I'd say that we looked at several variables.
And the people who are at highest risk of exposure were farm laborers, correct?
Not entirely. It was farm laborers and gardeners, mainly.
And farm laborers are generally exposed to much more intense chemicals and environments than gardeners and other people, correct?
I'd say it depends on the circumstance. I mean, certainly they may be exposed to slightly different chemicals, but there are people who are not farmers that work with dangerous chemicals as well.
And did these farmers only use Lush fertilizer?
I don't have a way of knowing that since I didn't look into each farmer individually.
And since you don't know if they used other products, it's hard to account their health issues to DRUFO, isn't it?
I wouldn't say necessarily. As I was talking about before, once you look at the large groups of people, variables like that start to become less important as they start to average out over each group.
Would the risk of exposure be decreased if all of the safety precautions were followed?
Yes, as with most things in the world, wearing extra safety precaution would never hurt. So in theory,
So the risk of exposure would be decreased if protective clothing had been worn, correct?
yes, that's why it's so important for companies to label clear warnings about things like this.
And isn't it also true that the risk of exposure would be decreased if a respirator or an N95?
Yes, that's true. Wearing a mask could help.
And the risk of exposure would also be decreased if proper hand washing techniques were used, correct?
Yes, that is true.
Are all the safety, I'm sorry, can I direct your attention to Exhibit 1?
I don't have that in front of me, so someone
My co-counsel.
screen share that org.
Dr. Rogers, are all the safety precautions that decrease risk exposure printed on the Lush Fertilizer logo?
I'm not familiar with this logo. I haven't looked at this in particular. If you want me to just read it right now, I can. So, what was your question again?
Could you read the user safety recommendations? Could you read that out loud?
Sure. As I've stated before, I have no personal experience with this, but if you want me to read it out loud, I can. As with any spray fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin. Use of a respirator or N95 mask is recommended. Follow manufacturer's instructions for cleaning, maintaining personal protective equipment, PPE.
Are all of the safety precautions that decrease risk of exposure printed on the Lush Fertilizer logo?
Yes, they're printed, but they're not put as a warning. They're just merely a recommendation. And from my experience looking at different studies of how employers provide equipment like this, I found that just a fine print thing like that often doesn't do much for employers to tell their employees to wear these things, nor do the employers tend to listen to something like that when it's just such a small fine print like that.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. That'll be all. No further questions.
And Ms. Liebman, redirect. And we've had a little problem here, as I said, as we get to the end of these testimonies. We've had a little problem getting exhibits up and some repetition of some testimony that was not being able to be heard. I'm going to add 30 seconds to each side, both direct and cross. So timekeepers, direct would then be, well, however much time we've got here on direct. I think we're down to the, how much would that add to Ms. Liebman's time on direct? What would the total be? 48 seconds, great. And whatever that would be for as well for Ms. Abraha. So when we get to cross. So Ms. Liebman, you've got a short period of time. If you have questions, go right ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, can you please outline why your methodology is effective?
My methodology is effective because it looks at a broad group of people, control groups, a middle group, and a group who used it often. And by looking at such a broad group, it's very easy to tell these correlations and to prove that a causation is more probable than not.
Now, can you outline how your safety recommendations relate to Lush Fertilizer?
Well, my safety recommendations do align with what they put on the label. However, because of the research I've done into how people label things like this on their products, I believe that the recommendations need to be, first off, a warning, and second off, far more clear than just a fine print on the back of the packaging.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Abraha. And if we could have an accurate time with that additional 30 seconds for Ms. Abraha on cross, for recross, a minute and a half, a minute 50. Ma'am, you may continue.
Thank you. Dr. Rogers, was your study ever replicated?
Could you repeat that?
Was your study ever replicated?
Well, as I said before, I've conducted many studies in this field. I've conducted several, and I have a lot going on right now at once, so I can't particularly remember whether or not that one.
Was the study conducted about this study that we were talking about right now, the DRUFO study, where you had the 3 control groups? Was it ever replicated?
I do not remember.
Okay. But having a study replicated could remove bias and random chance, correct?
I suppose, yes, it could remove random chance. Yeah, sure, I'll agree to that.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Ms. Let's see here. I'm sorry, I had Ms. Liebman. Any additional witnesses for the plaintiff?
Plaintiff rests, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. We'll now have the first witness for the defense, which I believe is, hold on here, is Blake Doncourt. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Mr. Blake Doncourt to the stand.
And Ms. Coster is on direct. And give me just a moment. It looks like Ms. Liebman is on cross. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and you may call your witness. I think you already did. Mr. Doncourt is on the stand. You may continue, Ms. Coster.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Doncourt. Please state your name, spelling the last for the record.
Blake Doncourt, Doncourt.
Thank you. I'm going to begin the direct examination now. Are you ready?
Yes.
Could you please begin by telling us a little bit about yourself?
I am the Chief Executive Officer of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated.
And what has been your experience with Lush Fertilizer?
Since 2000, I have worked day and night to grow the company from an unknown producer of fertilizers to one of the world's largest manufacturer for commercial and private use fertilizers to create vibrant landscaping. As an environmentalist myself, I have also worked hard to ensure our company is a positive impact on the world.
How so?
We've directed 10% of our annual profits to charities, which work to decrease the world's global nitrogen footprint. Our company has also been instrumental in creating state and national legislation seeking to further educate people on worldwide issues. We've even started our own charity focusing on cleaning up the world's most polluted areas of the ocean.
So then, why are you here today?
I'm here today to address the claims that through my negligence brought by Dakota Weirs, I have caused his cancer. These could not be further from the truth, as my company would never allow a dangerous product to go into the public's hands.
I'd like to direct your attention now to these claims. Are you aware of what these claims are?
Yes, Lush and I are being falsely accused of ignoring a known carcinogenic DRUFO in our fertilizer.
And did you perform any testing or research on the product before it was completed, before putting it on the market?
Of course, we did extensive research and testing to determine any potential risks of using the product.
And could you please tell us about what you found in this research?
Our toxicology research and development team found nothing in the product, nor did the EPA, to require a warning because of the insignificant levels of toxicity in our fertilizer.
And what did you do with what you found in this research?
Because we found little to no risk to a person using our fertilizer, there was no need under federal or state law to put a warning on the product. It's hard to put a warning on a product that doesn't exist.
And did you know about any concerns with DRUFO itself?
I was never aware of any sustained concern with DRUFO itself, but I have never seen any valid scientific evidence showing that it's carcinogenic either.
It's come up today that Lush doesn't bake Lush fertilizer. Why not?
Objection, Your Honor. Are constructively sequestered.
I'm sorry, Ms. Liebman, your objection is what?
All witnesses are constructively sequestered.
I'm sorry, I'm missing part. What is effectively sequestered?
Sorry, constructively. So I would prefer that opposing counsel lay more foundation for how Doncourt would know about this if opposing counsel wants to ask.
Okay, yeah, it's a foundation objection then. Ms. Coster, if you can lay a foundation that the owner of this company is privy to this information gathered by the company, that would be fine. Some CEOs maybe aren't. So,
Yes, Your Honor. Since you found no risk, as you stated in Drufo itself, did you decide to bake this fertilizer?
We did not decide to bake this fertilizer. This was a company decision and I was part of the team making it.
So then why didn't you?
We don't bake the fertilizer because it's too expensive for the process for the little risk it alleviates. Again, we've seen no valid scientific evidence showing that Drufo is carcinogenic, so it was simply overkill.
I'd like to bring your attention now to the claims brought against you by Carson Durst. What, if anything, do you know about these claims?
Carson is accusing both me and Lush of financial motivation to put a dangerous product in the public's hands.
And what is your relationship to Ms. Durst?
Carson had worked for Lush until he was fired and started working for our biggest competitor, Terria Greenery.
And what was Ms. Durst's job at Lush?
She was part of Lush's research and development team, meaning it was her job to look for any dangers so that we could follow up on them.
Could you please tell the court about any such dangers she brought to your attention while at Lush?
While working at Lush, she brought no dangers to my attention, even though she had countless opportunities to. But when she started working for Terria Greenery, she claimed she did bring dangers to my attention, even though I've never heard of any.
Did Lush's other researchers report to you, or what did Lush's other researchers report to you in their testing?
They've all reached the opposite conclusion what Carson is trying to claim.
What, if anything, do you know about the email Ms. Durst has brought against you today?
I know he's claiming that the research and development reports were carefully crafted as to not damage Lush's image, and so that there was no paper trail about the real findings of Drufo.
And did you do anything to validate this email?
We've turned over our entire email system to the plaintiff's lawyer, and they have found no such email. So there's no way this email can be valid.
Who is Lush's biggest competitor, Mr. Durst?
Terria Greenery.
And where does Carson work now?
Terria Greenery.
Mr. Doncourt, what is your response to the claim that through your intentional negligence, you would cause harm to other people?
That's an absurd accusation. I am an avowed environmentalist. Had there been any significant verifiable risk that Drufo could be carcinogenic, I would never allow our company to put it on the market.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Liebman, cross-exam.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Doncourt, you are the CEO of Lush Fertilizer.
That is correct.
And one of the key ingredients in Lush Fertilizer is Drufo, correct?
Yes.
There are numerous studies depicting Drufo as dangerous and carcinogenic, isn't that correct?
I would not say numerous. I've only seen one, and it was not a valid study.
Yet these studies, plural, exist.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
As to at least one of the studies exists, whether numerous studies, you may ask him again. I'll allow another question on numerous studies if he's aware of those, but otherwise he's admitted there is at least one study. So Ms. Liebman, you may continue on those grounds.
Despite knowing of at least one study, you put Drufo in the market, correct?
The study that I know about, Dr. Casey Rogers, was created after Drufo was created and has not been peer-reviewed nor published in a scientific journal, and so we do not treat it as a valid study.
Did you put Drufo in the market knowing about this study?
No, this study did not come out by the time we put it in the market.
Moving on, as CEO, doesn't it fall on you to ensure that your company does not put dangerous products into the market?
That is correct.
But you completely ignored the study showing carcinogenic effects in rats, specifically, when it was brought to your attention.
This study that you're referring to, I don't know exactly its publication date, but did not come out before we made the decision to put our product into the public's hands, and it has not been shown to be true or valid.
Isn't it true that you received an email in June of 2003 raising concerns about Drufo's potential carcinogenic qualities?
I have received no such email.
Yet your name is on the receiver list of this email.
I don't know why it would be there. I've turned over my email system to you and your co-counsel, and you have found no such email.
Mr. Doncourt, I'm simply asking if your name is on the receiver list of this email, which has been entered into evidence.
I'm not familiar with the email list, but may I take a look at it? Can you direct me to the exhibit?
Yes, Your Honor. Just one moment. Permission to screen share what has been already entered as Exhibit 4?
Of course.
Mr. Doncourt, would you please read aloud who this was sent to?
Aaron Steffens, Adam Gooney, Alex Monroe, Brad Surlock, Browning Yabet, Carrie Kari, Carson Durst, Blake Doncourt, myself, John Smith, Judy Bishop, Paula Duval, and Ryan Hewitt.
So that is your name in the sent list?
Yes, it is.
Moving on, isn't it also correct that you did not include a warning about carcinogenic properties of Drufo on the packaging of the fertilizer?
Our research and development team found no carcinogenic nature in our Drufo product, nor did the EPA, so we did not put a warning on it.
Well, that's a no.
Correct, we did not put a warning because it has no carcinogenic risk.
You testified to your knowledge of baking. Isn't it true that baking the fertilizer as part of the treatment completely eliminates carcinogenic risk?
It will remove the very small to no risk at all being carcinogenic.
So is that a yes?
Yes, it would.
Yet, Mr. Doncourt, you didn't properly treat the fertilizer by baking it.
As I've stated in my direct examination, the process will eliminate so little of a risk that it's simply overkill to do so.
So that's a no, Mr. Doncourt?
No, we do not bake our fertilizer.
And this was because, as you stated, baking the fertilizer would be more costly.
That is not the sole reason. We've also found no valid scientific evidence to show that it's carcinogenic. So baking it would simply alleviate no risk at all based off of our studies.
Yet that was the main reason.
Because there was no risk, we did not bake it because it would save on cost, yes.
In fact, Lush Fertilizer actually saved quite a bit of money by doing this, isn't that correct?
I would say we saved a significant amount of money.
Would you say that it was over $100,000?
The exact number I'm not as familiar with, but I would say we saved a significant amount of money, yes.
Would you say that it's over $1 million, just estimating?
My estimation is
speculation.
He's asking merely if he knows. If he doesn't know, he may say so. If he does know, he may testify to it. So let's proceed on that ground. Questions? Do you need the question repeated, Mr. Sorry, Mr. Doncourt?
No, I will proceed answering. I cannot say the exact amount of money we've saved on it, though over $1 million over the course of 18 years it being in the market would probably be a reasonable estimate.
And you created an amortization table to estimate this saved cost?
Yes, I created it when we decided to not bake the product and put it into the public's hands.
Specifically, by not baking the fertilizer, you estimated that you would save $2,615,553, correct?
The exact number to the significant digits I'm not as familiar with, but yes, it would be somewhere around there.
Moving on, Mr. Doncourt, as a CEO, isn't it important to make rational decisions for your company?
Yes, that's how you become a CEO.
Right, but wouldn't you agree that major life events can impact rational decision making?
Some rational decision making can be affected by emotional pleas in your life or emotional changes in your life.
Isn't it true that you just recently got out of divorce proceedings?
I would not say recently, but I did get out of divorce proceedings.
Right, and this would impact your emotional stability and rationality?
Recently, no.
But it did, in the past, impact how you managed your finances.
It is possible, yes, but I would still not say it affected my company.
So I suppose it's a coincidence that your monetary decisions for Lush allow you to have more money for your divorce?
I would not say it in the slightest. I make the money as I should for a CEO and are able to pay my spouse's alimony from that.
Of course. No further questions, Your Honor.
And Ms. Coster, redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Did you create the amortization table, or when did you create the amortization table?
I created it back in 2004 when you decided to not bake the product.
And was this before your divorce?
This was quite a while before my divorce.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
And Ms. Liebman, any recross on that issue?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Doncourt, thank you. Your testimony is concluded. You are excused. We'll now have the next witness for the defense, Skylar Weirs. And Mr. Highness, you are directing this witness, is that correct? Mr. Highness, you are directing, correct? I'm sorry, I don't have your, it does not say you're muted, but I can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Don't know what was the problem there, but Ms. Let's see here. I've got Ms. Moskowitz as doing cross-exam. Is that correct? No.
Is this for Skylar Weirs, I believe?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just had him out of order.
Okay.
Hang on just a moment. Sorry, my fault. Yes, Ms. Carney will be doing cross, and Mr. Highness, you may call your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Skylar Weirs to the stand.
And let's see. Ms. Weirs, you have been sworn. Mr. Highness, you may continue.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Weirs. Can you state your name, spelling the last for the record?
Skylar Weirs, W-E-I-R-S.
Ms. Weirs, what is your current occupation?
I'm an investigative journalist for the Rationalist magazine.
What is your current occupation brought you to investigate?
I typically investigate topics like individual health and corporate policy.
Now, Ms. Weirs, these topics do not sound directly related to this case. Why is it important that you were here testifying today?
I'm here today because I published an article about Drufo and its carcinogenic connection.
And how long did you spend researching and analyzing this topic?
I spent an entire year researching and studying the impacts of Drufo, but more specifically, its carcinogenic connection or lack thereof.
And what exactly did this research entail?
It entailed that I personally go through publications on different agritech companies, which included Lush Fertilizer.
And are there any significant valid sources that you got your information from?
Yes, I used information from the United States Department of Agriculture and the National Association of States Department of Agriculture.
Your Honor, by Rule of Evidence 702, I believe that I've laid sufficient foundation that asserts that Skylar Weirs has specialized knowledge over the average juror through the excessive time and research completed on the on-balance impacts of agritech. We offer Skylar Weirs as an expert in agritech analysis.
All right, Ms. Carney, any objection to that qualification?
I have a brief voir dire, Your Honor.
You may.
Ms. Weirs, you testified today that you have done a year of research for your article about Drufo, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And in that year, you only spent a portion of it researching Drufo itself, correct?
Yes, I did spend a year researching Drufo and agriculture.
But you only spent a portion of that year researching specifically Drufo.
Yes, that's correct.
And as for your research on Drufo, you didn't do any studies on the side effects yourself.
I did research Drufo and its carcinogenic connection specifically.
But you didn't do any experiments yourself on the side effects of Drufo.
I don't have the qualifications to do experiments myself.
Moving on, you used other people's research to create these articles, correct?
Yes, I used credible sources to find my information for the article.
Yet you didn't give us a list of articles you referenced today.
No, I did not.
Now moving on, have you ever worked at a farm?
No, I have not.
Have you ever worked for an agricultural company?
No, but I have done research on agricultural companies.
And lastly, have you ever worked with hands-on real product?
No, again, I have done the research on the agricultural companies. I have not done work in agriculture myself. I'm allergic to grass.
Your Honor and ladies and gentlemen of the jury, may I direct your attention to jury instruction 15 on page 10? And do you have that with you, or do I have to pull that up?
And this is a jury instruction you want to show to this witness?
No, I'm just going to read it aloud in case you wanted to read along with me. I was just asking. Or I could simply just read it.
Okay, I'm going to exclude this from the jury. I'll listen to it at the moment. This will be a bench conference. Go ahead and read it.
Jury instruction number 15 defines that a witness qualified as an expert by education, training, or experience may state opinions. You should judge expert testimony just as you would judge any other testimony. You may accept it or reject it in whole or in part. You should give the testimony the importance you think it deserves, considering the witness's qualifications, the reasons for the opinions, and all the other evidence in this case. Your Honor, this jury instruction means that the witness may or may not be entered as an expert witness. And finally, we object to Skylar Weir's being entered as an expert in agri-tech analysis because under Rule 702, a witness is only qualified as an expert by knowledge, skill, expertise, training, and education. And today, Ms. Skylar Weirs did not demonstrate this.
Your Honor,
All
may I
right.
respond?
Yes, you may.
Your Honor, also according to Rule of Evidence 702, my witness only needs to have more knowledge of this case and her expertise on this case through time. She only needs to have that over the average juror, and the average juror here today does not have much knowledge on agri-tech analysis. Therefore, my witness, through her year of extensive research that gave her the expertise on this topic and the knowledge she has gained from this, she qualifies as an expert today.
All right, Ms. Carney, I want to address the issue of qualifying this witness in agri-tech analysis first. Let's deal with that one issue first. Your response to Mr. Hines.
Given the fact that Ms. Skylar Weirs did not give us the articles she used today for her research regarding the one article about Drufo, and the fact that she only spent a year and she's not an expert in anything regarding agri-tech, I do not think she should be admitted as an expert.
Your Honor, may I respond?
You may.
And previously stated, my witness referenced where she got her information from, the sources that she got her information from. While she may not have directly referenced what she used, she relayed the sources that she used to those of us that are here today. And her year of extensive research is still more than what the jurors have today.
All right. As to the experience level here in having expertise based on research, although the research is other articles, this expert is, Ms. Weirs, is not relating any specific study as her own. She is indicating that she looked at all these studies and has formed her own opinion. Now, it may not be an opinion based on years and years of research, but this 6 months or whatever part of a year that she did will be taken by the jury as weight, not qualification. The court will qualify her as an agri-tech analysis of Drufo, not agri-tech in general, because that's not what she read. She read about Drufo. So I'm going to qualify her there. As to this other issue of, and I wrote it down here, of not providing the articles, that issue I would say could have been raised prior to this time as far as discovery into this expert. If it had not been raised already and ruled on by the court, I'm not going to rule at trial. She's indicated that she did read these. There's been, up to date, no challenge to that she did base her opinion on those studies, so I'm not going to exclude her on that ground. Was there an additional issue, Ms. Carney, that you had?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. The witness is specifically qualified then in agritech, agricultural technology analysis of DRUFO. Mr. Highness, you may continue. And Mr. Highness, we're having that audio problem again. Nope. I'm guessing it might be your earplug there that's causing the problem, but we'll see. Nope. Maybe the connection of the earplug on the other end. Not yet. Yeah, time is not running yet. So don't worry about that. We'll get this corrected. Do you have an exterior microphone that you're using?
Is it good now, Your Honor?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Time will start now.
Okay. Ms. Weirs, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about agritech now. Ms. Weirs, what is agritech?
Agritech is the use of technology in agriculture, horticulture, and aquaculture.
And what type of companies or products did you research while investigating agritech?
I researched the defendant, Lush Fertilizer, and also a lot of other commercial agriculture companies.
And what did your research about Lush Fertilizer reveal?
It revealed that modern fertilizers like Lush are a whole lot safer than the older products that are still in use today.
More specifically, what did your research about the chemical compound DRUFO reveal?
It revealed that DRUFO doesn't have the added pesticides that are found in other grass seed products like glyphosate and arsenic, which means that other fertilizers are more likely to cause cancer than Lush is.
Ms. Weirs, what does this mean?
This means that Lush's development of DRUFO is actually protecting its consumers by the elimination of exposure to chemicals that are known to be carcinogenic.
And through your year of extensive research and knowledge on Lush Fertilizer and DRUFO, what can you expertly claim?
I can claim that in comparison to other fertilizers, Lush is less likely to be carcinogenic.
And why is this important today?
Well, my research revealed that any study claiming that Lush is carcinogenic was always inconclusive at best, whereas other fertilizers that my brother would have used contain known carcinogens.
And in your expert opinion, who is at fault for your sibling's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
I honestly just want justice for my sibling more than anything, and Haven Landscaping was the one that allowed my brother to use harmful chemicals without requiring the use of proper protective gear.
And I'd now like to talk about your personal connection to this case. Ms. Weirs, how are you connected to the plaintiff?
The plaintiff, Dakota Weirs, is my twin sibling.
And what is your relationship like with the plaintiff?
Well, it's been strained for several years, but even more so with the case.
What is testifying here today against your sibling like?
Ultimately, I love my sibling Dakota, and being here today and testifying against my family is really difficult, but I believe that the truth at any cost must be heard. So even though my family is important to me, I'm not going to let the truth be left behind.
And what would your response be to someone who might call you resentful and spiteful in this case?
Again, I love my family and I love Dakota, and I'm here to bring truth. I'm not here to harm my family in any way.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
And, oops, sorry.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Apologies. This is the timekeeper for this is the timekeeper for the defense, and I've been having a conversation with the timekeeper from opposing counsel, and we were just wondering, we have two different times for cross. One of us counted the voir dire as part of cross, and one of us did not. Voir dire, is that counted as part of the plaintiff's?
My understanding is that it is counted.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Ms. Carney, you may proceed.
May I get a time check
You
for
bet.
cross? Okay. Gotcha. To start out, is it true that you're an investigative journalist?
Yes, that's correct.
And to be specific, a freelance journalist.
Yes, I am an investigative freelance journalist.
And you get paid to write articles.
Yes, I do.
And you write for the Rationalist magazine.
Yes, I do.
You also authored an article that was published in the Rationalist magazine.
Yes, my article on Truffaut.
And this article questioned the narrative that there's a causal link between Truffaut and cancer.
Yes, my research found that any link between Truffaut and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was inconclusive.
You spent a year reading and researching for this article.
Yes, that's correct.
And in this research, you researched the company Lush Fertilizer.
I researched Lush Fertilizer and other agricultural companies, yes.
Also in your research, you found that synthetic nitrogen is one of the key ingredients in Lush Fertilizer.
Yes, that's correct.
Along with your other research, you found that nitrogen has been linked to various types of diseases and cancers.
That is correct, yes.
In your witness statement, you classified Truffaut as an effective pesticide, correct?
Yes, Truffaut does act as a pesticide.
And pesticides are poisons, as you say in your witness statement.
Pesticides do contain many poisonous elements, yes.
From your research, you know that for this article, you know that Lush is just as safe, if not more safe, than their competitors' products, correct?
Yes, Lush is newer and Truffaut is safer than other ingredients and other fertilizers.
And, excuse me, and moving on, you admit to being a bit of a gambler, as you said in your witness statement.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevancy.
Ms. Carney?
Your Honor, this is going towards the financial bias of Mrs. Weirs.
Mr. Highness?
My witness, the gambling that may have been done by my witness does not have any issues with her being a journalist. It doesn't relate to anything about why she's about how it could harm her journalistic integrity.
Your Honor, I'm not asking this regarding her journalistic integrity. I moved on from that line of questioning.
I'll allow the question. Objection overruled. This is just general background and on credibility. You may go ahead.
And if do you want me to repeat my question, Ms. Scott?
Yes, you may.
No, I'm all right. I do have a bit of a gambling issue.
And a few years back at a March Madness event, you were put in a hole you haven't been able to yet climb out of.
Yeah, my parents were helping me.
But your father cut you off ultimately.
Yes, he needed to pay my twin siblings' medical bills.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Mr. Highness, redirect.
Yes, Your Honor, very brief. Ms. Weirs, why is Truffaut better than other fertilizers?
Truffaut is better because it needs to be applied less often, and it does contain nitrogen, as I discussed, but Truffaut is a bonding agent. So it ensures that the nitrogen is not going to contaminate anything which could cause cancer. So Truffaut and Lush is very safe.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Carney, recross.
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you. And Ms. Weirs, your testimony is concluded. You are excused. We'll have the next witness for the defendant, who is Dr. Williams, I believe. And Ms. Abraha, this is your witness, correct? And we'll have then Ms. Moskowitz as cross-exam, and you may call your witness.
Thank you. The defense calls Dr. Devin Williams to the stand. Good afternoon, Dr. Williams. Please continue on the last for the record.
Good afternoon. Devin Williams, Willians.
Where are you currently employed?
I work for Lush, a successful fertilizer company here in the US.
And how long have you worked there?
10 years and counting.
What are your responsibilities at Lush?
I originally was a technician, but now I lead the toxicology department of research, which places me in charge of large decisions regarding the safety of our chemicals.
Can you expand on that?
Sure. I work with different chemicals to understand their reactions given different environments as well as people.
What educational and professional qualifications do you have?
A lot. I have a PhD and have worked in other specialized programs before moving to Lush. My curriculum vitae covers this extensively.
Your Honor, I'm now going to refer the witness that has previously been marked as Exhibit 9. So clear for the fact that we're looking at Exhibit 9.
Exhibit 9 for identification.
Hold on, my co-counsel is trying to share it.
If opposing counsel is having trouble, I can screen share.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
We have it, thank you.
Here it is.
Dr. Williams, do you recognize this?
Yes,
What is it?
it's my curriculum vitae.
And is it true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your previous education?
I got my PhD in pharmacology and toxicology along with.
Excuse me, before we start testimony, are you offering Exhibit 9 or are you not going to offer it? If you're not going to offer it, we'll take it off the screen.
I was laying foundation before offering it.
But the foundation is not the content of it, that's what she was testifying to, was the content. And before we get the content, we just need to know if this is accurate and a true and accurate copy.
Okay. Let's reflect that I am moving to enter Exhibit 9.
I'm sorry, you broke up there a little bit. Is that a question to the witness?
No, I'm asking to have Exhibit 9 entered into evidence.
Well, I have to have some testimony from the witness that it's a true and accurate copy before I can rule on it.
Dr. Williams, is this a true and accurate copy?
Yes, it is.
And
Yeah,
you have offered it now, Exhibit 9. Ms. Moskowitz, any objection to Exhibit 9?
No objections, Your Honor.
Exhibit 9 is admitted. Ms. Abraha, you may continue.
Could you tell us a little bit about your previous education?
I got my PhD in pharmacology and toxicology, along with my master's degree in forensic toxicology from CSU. I also did a post-PhD program in pharmacotoxicology at the University of Utah.
What professional background do you have?
I was employed at Colorado State University, CU Denver, and the University of New Mexico, and the Larimer County office.
What did you do at your previous employment?
I worked for CSU as an associate professor of toxicology. I have also worked as a tenured assistant professor of forensic toxicology at the University of New Mexico.
Where else have you been employed?
I was an assistant professor of toxicology and pathophysiology at CU Denver, and I worked with the Larimer County Office of the Chief Medical Examiner Toxologist. I have also published many works.
Could you tell the jury a little bit more about your publications?
Sure, I was published as an author in the forensic aspects of poisons, the alteration in prolactin secretion in female rats by some endocrine disrupting chemicals, among other works.
Your Honor, I that I've laid sufficient foundation and I wish to have Dr. Williams entered as an expert witness in toxicology and pharmacology.
And if we could drop Exhibit 9. And toxicology, and what's the second area? I'm sorry.
Pharmacology.
Pharmacology, got it. And Ms. Moskowitz, any objection to either of those areas of expertise?
No objections, Your Honor.
Dr. Williams is then qualified as an expert in both toxicology and pharmacology. Ms. Abraha, you may continue.
Dr. Williams, what do fertilizers do?
They enhance plant growth in two main ways. They either add nutrients or enhance the effectiveness of the soil by modifying its water retention and aeration, affecting environmental balances.
And what is the need for multi-nutrient fertilizers?
Well, they modify environmental balances, thus solving the eutrophication
Objection,
crisis.
Your Honor, outside of the scope of the expert witness.
Ms. Abraham?
I entered an expert in pharmacology and toxicology, and she was talking about how the chemicals in fertilizers affect the environment and therefore affect humans.
And Ms. Moskowitz, why is this outside of this expert's field of expertise?
Your Honor, toxicology and pharmacology relate to how the environment affects the human body, not to how chemical or agricultural chemical agents affect the environment.
Ms. Abraham?
I'm talking about how the fertilizers affect the environment and therefore how the environment affects us.
All right, I'm going to allow a little latitude here. I think we have to go from the general to the specific at some point with this chemical, and it does get into the environment, and then people enter the environment. So I'm going to give a little latitude here. You may continue, Ms. Abraham. If there is ground for another objection, I'll hear it, but not yet. So go right ahead.
Dr. Williams, do you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
What is the need for multi-nutrient fertilizers?
Well, they modify environmental balances by solving the eutrophication crisis.
What is the eutrophication process?
Well, eutrophication is a buildup of excess nutrients in water due to agricultural runoff. It all stems from too much unused nitrogen, which accumulates in the water, creating a huge problem for the environment.
And how does this create a problem for the environment?
This process, it destroys wildlife, reduces oxygen levels, and creates a home for harmful bacteria to thrive. This led to the creation of DRUFO, actually.
And why was DRUFO created?
Well, the environmental issues that these older fertilizers caused sprung the search for a solution, and that's how DRUFO began to be developed.
How does DRUFO solve the environmental problems created by fertilizers?
Unlike other fertilizers, DRUFO binds to plants and soil, meaning less of the product.
Objection, Your Honor, outside the scope of the expert witness.
Ms. Abraha, I need you to connect this environmental issue to people. She's indicated that it kills wildlife, that it's harmful in general to the environment. Can you lay a foundation that it also harms people, which brings us to this case of harming the plaintiff, or allegedly harming the plaintiff? If you could do that, we'll go forward.
Okay, Your Honor. I would now like to focus on the ban of DRUFO in the EU. Are you aware of the ban on DRUFO in the EU?
Yes, I am.
And why is DRUFO banned in the EU?
DRUFO is illegal for reasons completely unrelated to cancer risks. In fact, it was banned because of too much nitrogen in natural water, which can affect humans and wildlife regardless, which is exactly what our product prevents, but it doesn't look that way in the lab.
Based on that testimony, I overrule the previous objection. It's now connected up to people. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. What is the EU ban based on?
It's based on laboratory results, not results in nature. However, DRUFO is such an effective bonding agent that it does reduce nitrates in nature. Controlled lab experiments don't always translate directly to the natural world.
Did Lush Fertilizer respond to the EU ban?
No, we were a brand new company with limited resources at the time. We didn't have the resources to fight the decision, but after we finish our current study on DRUFO's effects in nature, we plan to submit our findings to the EU.
Are there any other bans on DRUFO?
Lucky for us, the U.S. Department of Agriculture relies on its own research, but a lot of less developed countries copy the EU's decisions regardless of the actual facts.
Let's focus more on the plaintiff's claims that DRUFO is carcinogenic. What do studies on DRUFO and its relationship to cancer reveal?
The use of DRUFO has not been correlated with a significant statistical increase in the incidence of non-Hodgkin lymphoma or any other cancer.
How are the carcinogenic risks of DRUFO discovered?
Well, we use statistics, and when you take any large group of people who use any fertilizer, a small percentage of them will develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma regardless of whether or not the fertilizer contains DRUFO.
What do the statistics reveal about DRUFO's likelihood of causing cancer?
The data we've analyzed consistently revealed that users of DRUFO containing fertilizers did not have an elevated risk compared to users of other fertilizers.
Why have you compared Lush's fertilizers to other fertilizers?
You have to compare apples to apples in order to reach valid conclusions. Studies that compare vastly different scenarios to reach conclusions are often fundamentally flawed.
Are you aware of Dr. Rogers' study?
Yes, actually, Rogers' study is a perfect example of comparing apples to oranges.
How so?
Rogers' study compared farm laborers, casual gardeners, and people who didn't do either of those things and their exposure to Drufo, although farm laborers are exposed to vastly different products and conditions, making Dr. Rogers' study invalid.
Why are these variables problematic in research?
These variables are problematic because if someone who participated in Dr. Rogers' study contracted non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, it cannot be traced back to Drufo.
What other important procedures are there in a successful and reliable study?
A study should be peer-reviewed and replicated. This has been adapted and accepted by the rest of the scientific community. Unsurprisingly, Dr. Rogers failed to have their study peer-reviewed and duplicating, making their study less reliable than a 5th grade science.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Moskowitz, cross-exam, yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Dr. Williams, you've been employed at Lush for over a decade now.
Yeah, I would say about a decade.
So your financial income rests on the company.
I wouldn't say that. I'm employed at other places as well. I'm not at all dependent.
But you do receive a large amount of income from your work as a toxicologist at Lush Fertilizer.
I do receive income from Lush.
Now, at your job at Lush, you work primarily with developing Drufo.
Yes, I oversee the development of other products, including Drufo.
And as that lead developer, you often work in close correlation with Blake Doncourt, the CEO?
Yes.
In fact, your role was so entwined that you would admit in your witness statement that Doncourt needed you to keep Drufo, quote, cost effective.
Yes.
Moving on, Drufo is banned in the EU, as you previously mentioned.
Yes.
And so the outcome of this case could affect Lush's resubmission to have their fertilizers sold in the European Union.
The resubmission isn't in regards to whether or not Drufo is linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Our resubmission is actually related to agricultural runoff.
But yet, if this court found that Drufo was related to the development of cancer in Dakota Weirs, it would hardly resubmission to have Drufo sold elsewhere.
Objection, speculation.
Ms. Moskowitz?
Your Honor,
I think you're going to have to lay some foundation here for that question with the witness before you can ask that question as to whether or not she has any knowledge of that issue.
As to the resubmission process, Your Honor?
Yes.
I can form some foundational questions.
That'd be fine.
Now, Dr. Williams, based on your rational perceptions, would it be safe to say that Drufo would no longer be able to be sold if found to cause cancer?
That would be reasonable to assume.
So therefore, if it were found in this court that it was the cause of Dakota Weir's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, it would be safe to assume that Lush could no longer have any chance of selling in the EU.
Yeah, but it doesn't, so.
Now, moving on to your analysis of Dr. Rogers' study. You did study his entire research?
Yes, the study on Drufo that he published, yes.
But you disagreed with his findings?
Yes, I do. It's fundamentally flawed.
Did you perform your own study to counter his arguments?
No, but we've done statistical data over the years as well.
Did you find any other study that you've brought to court today to prove anything against Dr. Rogers' claims?
No, that's not necessary because this is an invalid study. It wasn't duplicated, it wasn't peer reviewed, and it is fundamentally flawed.
But yet there is no evidence that you have brought today to prove the contrary, that Drufo is safe.
Drufo is safe through previous studies that Lush has done.
Have you brought them here today?
No, I have not.
And thank you. No further questions.
And Ms. Abraha, redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Without redirect, there is no recross. Ms. Abraha, I'm sorry, Dr. Williams, your testimony is concluded. You are excused. Ms. Abraha, do you have any additional witnesses?
Thank you, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, the defense rests.
Thank you very much. We'll now proceed to closing arguments. And I have Ms. Carney will have closing argument for the plaintiff. Are you prepared to move forward? There you are. And Ms. Carney, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Today, Dakota Weirs demonstrated that at just 14, he began working for a landscaping company, Haven Landscaping, a locally owned business that used Lush Fertilizers products. But what Dakota didn't know was that while he lined the pots, Lush had been lining their pockets. Dakota thrived off of helping others, was an active member of his community, contributing to his National Honor Society, leading his school in school government, and even volunteering at the local homeless shelters when he could. He also wanted to be a talented piano player and was a talented piano player. And in fact, he had received a scholarship to the prestigious Juilliard School of Arts and Music to continue his music career. But all of this was taken away from him when he developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma as a result of Lush Fertilizers' negligence. Today, we represent Dakota Weirs and have proved by a preponderance of evidence that Dakota Weirs' non-Hodgkin lymphoma was more likely than not a result of Lush Fertilizers' neglect to recall products with a compound known as Drufo. As the plaintiff, we brought forth 3 witnesses. First, Dakota Weirs, the plaintiff and the victim of Lush Fertilizer who developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma after repeated use of Lush Fertilizers products. He explained how he was exposed to a fertilizer that had no warning label while he was lining the pots, despite the company being banned in Europe for the product's use of Drufo. Moreover, the second witness, Carson Durst, a previous employee of Lush Fertilizer who was a product development engineer. In detail, Durst explained how the studies performed by scientific professionals had been ignored by company heads, despite showing Drufo's carcinogenic nature. Durst testified that the research concluded that long-term exposure at early ages increases the carcinogenic nature, which was supported by Dakota Weirs after his horrible development of cancer. And lastly, Durst testified that Lush failed to create safer products despite the company being told that baking the Drufo would eliminate the carcinogenic risk, ultimately choosing to line their pockets rather than protect the people. And finally, Dr. Casey Rogers, a professor in horticultural and entomology department at the University of California at Berkeley. He testified to the carcinogenic nature of Drufo. He also testified that after years of research, the evidence illustrates an increase in critical health conditions in diagnosis in people exposed to Drufo. Dr. Rogers also gave us the burden of proof because he had the only testimony as to the more likely than not that Drufo causes cancer. The defense and all their witnesses either had motive or were biased. Then the defense brought up forth their 3 witnesses. First, CEO of Lush Fertilizer, Blake Doncourt, who showed that he cares for his company more than a child's life. He testified that the company had known that baking the Drufo would ultimately eliminate the drug's carcinogenic effects. Yet after learning this information and calculating and manipulating the numbers, Doncourt testified that this was too expensive. In the end, Doncourt admitted that for Lush, there was a greater importance in the company lining their pockets than to produce higher quality goods to line the pots. Second, the defense brought forth Dakota Weirs' twin, Skylar Weirs, the phony news writer with a history of questionable articles. The defense claimed that Skylar is an expert in agritech analysis, But do not be fooled, ladies and gentlemen. Skylar is just a 20-year-old with rudimentary experience in writing stories about UFOs, flat earth theory, and anti-vax rhetoric. Skylar has no college degree and a history of severe gambling issues. Skylar claimed that their research shows Drufo has no correlation to cancer. But remember, Skylar is not a doctor, just an inexperienced writer. And lastly, the defense brought forth the biased Dr. Devin Williams, the lead toxicology research and development labs at Lush Fertilizer, as well as the chair of the company's ethics committee. Dr. Williams claimed that Drufo has no significant probability of causing non-Hodgkin lymphoma. But it is important to remember that Dr. Williams is a toxicologist hired by the company Lush, and ultimately has bias towards the benefit of the company, therefore caring more about lining Lush's pockets rather than lining their pots. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defense stated that the reason Dakota Weirs was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma was due to the lack of responsibility, but as the plaintiff, we have proved by preponderance of evidence that it is more likely than not that Dakota Weirs developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma as a result of Lush Fertilizer's neglect. The defense had tons of bias and motives, which ultimately led to the destruction that Drufo caused in Dakota Weirs' life. And don't forget that Dakota lined the pots so that Lush could line their pockets. Thank you.
Thank you. We had a slight discrepancy between the timekeepers. I'll err on the side of having finished within 3 or 4 seconds of the end, not over. So there would be no deduction for going over the time. I think that's within the variable here between the two timekeepers. So scorers will not deduct for going beyond time on closing for the plaintiff. Mr. Highness, closing for the defendant.
Yes, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, esteemed judge, opposing counsel, we are here today to establish justice for Dakota Weirs. I'd also like to remind you that the plaintiff has the burden of proof in this case. Ladies and gentlemen, my co-counsel and I proved that Lush Fertilizer is not liable for Dakota's tragic disease. This trial will either restore the good name of Lush Fertilizer or destroy a company who is simply trying to make the world a safer place. The opposing counsel's witness statements consisted of an attempt to manipulate young Dakota Weirs. Carson Durst began her statement by proving her biased opinion. Her success sprouted from her relationship with the Doncourts. Carson had an advantage in getting her job at Lush because of her relationship with the Doncourts. Once fired, her frustration led her to not only break her non-compete agreement, but also to pursue a vendetta against Mr. Doncourt while working for their competitors, Terra Greenery. If she can't even be honest with something legally binding, how can her statement be trusted today? In Dr. Rogers' study, he tested farmers who used Lush and other fertilizers over time. In his study, he never had a control group of people who only used Lush, and his study was never replicated. Therefore, he can make no legitimate conclusion because Dr. Rogers did not test the effects of Drufo alone, and his study was never replicated. The first witness today was the plaintiff himself, Dakota Weirs. He testified about how his childhood was influenced by playing piano and volunteering in the society. The plaintiff's attorneys focused on the effects of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma on Dakota's life, which truly is a sad story. However, Dakota worked with many fertilizers, not only Lush's brand. Any one of these could have caused Dakota to get non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Dakota may have worked with Lush Fertilizer in Drufo, but he worked without the proper safety precautions. Unfortunately, his actions and his own negligence are what caused his disease. You also heard from the defense today, and we established that Lush Fertilizer has no liability through our witnesses. Blake Doncourt is simply a hardworking, moral businessman. He built Lush Fertilizer from the ground up and spent time making it environment friendly. He made sure that they tested Drufo before they started using it. His company took all the necessary precautions so that this would not happen. With all of the hard work he put into his company, ask yourselves, why now would he do something to put his company in jeopardy? Dr. Devin Williams proved that Drufo is a revolutionary component in agritech. As a toxicologist, Dr. Williams is in charge of making sure Lush Fertilizer products are safe. Through intense research and testing, she reinforced the fact that Drufo is not dangerous to humans because it is applied less. Skylar Weirs did the hardest thing for a person to do. She testified against her brother. She also proved she was qualified for this case by explaining her background on Agritech and by staying up to date with events at Agritech. Nothing could be harder than testifying against someone you know and love dearly. Skylar made this hard decision to show how much she cares about justice and how unbiased her opinions truly are, not for financial reasons. The only people lining their pockets in this case are Carson Durst and Dr. Rogers. Carson Durst moved jobs to where the money was and worked for Lush's competitors, Tara Greener. Dr. Rogers didn't even replicate his research so he could line his pockets quickly. Throughout this case, the defense proved time and again that there is no possible way Dakota could have gotten cancer by working with Truffaut safely. I wish I could say that the opposing counsel cares about Dakota's well-being, but they don't. The only thing stolen in this case is time from Dakota, who could be figuring out how to get around her illness as we speak. Strings are being pulled to destroy an environment-friendly company. To them, Dakota is simply a puppet to make money. The most important question we have to ask ourselves is, why are we gathered here today? We are here today to stop the puppeteering dominance over people with illnesses. Dakota Weirs is more than someone who got cancer. Dakota Weirs represents all those that have been taken advantage of to make money. Ladies and gentlemen, although we are here opposing the plaintiff, we are here today to establish justice for Ms. Weirs. However, Lush Fertilizer is not at fault. Blaming this company does not achieve true justice. My co-counsel and I truly wish the best for Dakota. The best for Dakota right now is working around her disease. The plaintiff has had the burden of proof in this case, and none of what the opposing witnesses brought up proves that Truffaut caused Dakota's cancer by a preponderant amount of evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With only about 3 seconds left for any rebuttal on direct, that is effectively no time. So we'll conclude the case at this time. What I'm going to ask is that when and congratulations, first round's over. I'm going to ask our timekeepers, when they have finished and submitted their scores, please come back on the screen, put your video back up, and we'll have some brief comments. In the meantime, I'm going to ask all the participants, please, to come up on screen so that I can, we call this burning a little time until the scoring panelists are done. That's my job now, is just to burn a little time until we have all of our scoring panelists back on the screen. This was very impressive.
Your Honor?
Yes.
This is Amber, your courtroom monitor. I just wanted to let you know that we have a scoring panelist who did lose about 15 minutes of connection. And so she had to drop out.
Okay,
so we still have 3 scoring panelists, but I just wanted to let you know, instead of 4, you'll be hearing comments for the students. You'll be hearing comments for 3.
That's outstanding that we had an extra then.
Yeah, right? Just as luck would have it. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up.
Okay, and I think we've got 2 of our 3 back here. Anyway, very good job. I wanted to mention something because very quickly, because it has to do with both sides. Both sides had one or more questions asked where the court said, I need more foundation. And you get, this is very, very common at trial, very common, where you'll get an objection to a particular witness's testimony, and opposing counsel just says, wait a minute, you know, that he or she can't testify to that. No background, you know, no knowledge, no information, no foundation. And then the court turns to the offering attorney and says, I need more foundation then from this witness. Now, this is, you have to go off script. You just have to. The judge has asked for it, and you've got to give it to the judge. And rather than, what you can do is you can ask the judge to be a little more specific in his or her ruling, saying, now, Judge, do I understand that the area of testimony is this, and you need more foundation? It'll give you a little time to think. You have to extemporaneize a little, and get back on. So you have to think outside the box, give the court what the court wants, and then move forward. Now, the option is just to say, well, I'll withdraw that. But if you just take a little time, and it doesn't take much time, ask the judge for a little clarification. That'll give you a little time to think, and you'll come up with a question or two of foundation. Usually 9 times out of 10, that's all it takes, and the testimony goes forward. Just a comment. We'll have some comments from our scoring panelists now. We'll be brief in general because we want to get all of our participants to the next trial. Mr. Prey, any comments you've got?
This is my first time scoring state competitions, and wow, I'm not surprised why these two teams got there. This was just absolutely marvelous. These were the witnesses were believable. The attorneys were cool as ice, and sometimes I got notes all over my rosters. I got like notes everywhere. And I do want to mention a few things. Abraha and Liebman, on your objections for the Rogers testimony. Whoa, great back and forth. Carney and Haynes, same. Skylar Weir's testimony, great back and forth. And Moskowitz and Abraha again, great back and forth on the Williams testimony. That's what entertains us. And your performance is what we judge you by. And I had a great time, and I'm very glad I was here, and it was a very close competition. And I'm going to be back tomorrow for the 4th round, and I'm going to be happy to be here. That was fun. I will probably score state again next year if they give me the opportunity.
Thank you. Ms. Morris.
I just want to tell you all, I was genuinely impressed with your performance, that particular aspect of this competition. And just to put this in a little bit into context, I spent the whole last week training and doing a practicum with lawyers that had about 1 to 2 year experience. So newer lawyers. And I want to say that your performances were really on par with those new attorneys. Your tone, you had a good presence. I think your storytelling, especially in your arguments for opening statement and closing arguments, were very much on par with those attorneys. The one aspect, well, kind of 2 aspects where I would say that could help amplify your performance is really the hardest part, I think, especially for people who are non-lawyers who haven't been to law school, and that's kind of the use of the rules of evidence when making and responding to objections, as well as procedure in the foundation for admitting exhibits and using exhibits. I think that is kind of the next step in the practice. I think you all had clearly thought a lot about this, worked really hard on those issues. So I commend you for all the hard work that you've done. It was very evident by your performance, and I was very impressed with you all. So good job.
Mr. Ingram.
Yeah, these were 2 phenomenal teams. Particularly, I thought the witnesses on both sides of the case stood out to me as above and beyond average, phenomenal witnesses. I could go on and on about the things you guys did great. If there's one piece of feedback that I could give, I think especially the lawyers listening on those objection battles, listening to what the judge was telling you, just like Judge Wheeler was saying, and listening to what the opposing counsel is saying. I can tell you, I know as a competitor, it's very easy to fall into the trap of, oh, I've gotten this objection 6 times before. I know what my next response is. But sometimes something changes and the judge says something that you're not expecting, you haven't heard before. And so it's really hard, but it'll pay off in the points if you can listen and really understand what the judge is saying and adapt your responses, uniquely to what they're telling you in this round. That's what gets you to that next level. But you guys were all phenomenal, and congratulations on making it here.
Thank you all very much. We're only 30 minutes late, which is about par for the course on these trials. I'm sure we probably won't be starting for a few minutes to give you folks a break and us a break before the next round. Thank you very much. We'll all leave the screen now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.